Yeah.
Oops. All the year. You would know.
I think we're waiting for another member or two of GBOS to arrive.
Margaret, do you have me on the queue? This is Guy.
I do see you, Guy. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep,
And
thank
I
you.
see Amanda Sassy now and Brianna Sullivan. Apparently Jennifer Wingard is having trouble connecting, and I haven't seen Mike Edgington yet. Brianna, do you want to give it a minute or two, or? There are-
A minute if Jennifer's having trouble logging in.
Okay.
But the beginning is pretty much reading though.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even see her in the waiting room.
Okay. Well, we have three. May know when you're recording.
Kyle started it already.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll start with the reading of the beginning of the agenda. Tonight is July 18th, 2022. This hybrid meeting is taking place via Microsoft Teams and at the Girdwood Community Room. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 public meetings. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standard of Conduct. I'll call to order at 7:04 p.m. I am Brianna Sullivan, co-chair, Parks and Recreation and Cemetery Supervisor. Online, go ahead, Amanda.
Amanda Sassy, Public Safety Supervisor.
Guy,
Guy Wade, Fire Department.
and Jennifer.
There she comes. Let me let her in.
Okay.
There. She should be able to hear you now.
Jennifer, if you're online, we're doing attendance.
Yes, I'm on. Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Jennifer Wingard, Roads and Utilities.
Thank you. And Mike, go ahead.
Mike Eppington, co-chair, land use supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Once everyone in attendance tonight. Any disclosures this evening?
This is Guy. I do have one. It's in new business, so it probably doesn't matter, but my wife works at Spoon Line, and I see that as agenda item number 19, okay?
Thank you, Guy. I do not see that as a rise to be a conflict tonight on number 19. Anyone else have a disclosure online?
I don't see any hands.
Okay. Mike, I have a disclosure if you would like to take the chair. And the disclosure is the exact same as June 20th that we've already ruled
Okay, I will take the chair then. So your disclosure is,
on agenda item 13. I have been to many of the Trails Committee meetings, and I am on the Girdwood Nordic Ski Club board.
okay, I think we already discussed this in the previous meeting and we decided it did not raise to a significant conflict. So unless I hear any challenge to that?
Yes.
Jennifer? Is your hand up, Jennifer?
Yes,
Sorry, go ahead.
I have the same disclosure as last time too about, this is the agenda item having to do with the short-term rentals. And I have one short-term, temporary short-term rental in Anchorage, which I don't think is relevant because it didn't pass the questions, but just thought I'd mention it. And if you feel differently, that I'm open to the discussion.
Okay, can I just check first of all, is there any challenge to my ruling on Brianna's potential conflict?
Oh, sorry, not me.
From you, not from Amanda? Okay, sorry. Let me just go through one at a time. Brianna, do you want to take? You can now have the chair back.
Okay, this is Brianna. I have the chair back, and Jennifer, your disclosure from last time, which we read through the conflict of interest questions, was ruled as not an issue. So I will rule the same this month's meeting as the agenda item is the same. Amanda, is your hand up?
Yes, I think this is the same as last time as well for number 13. I was on the Girdwood Trails Plan Subcommittee and have attended Girdwood Trails meetings and am a part of the executive board of the Girdwood Area Plan Update Committee, otherwise known as Imagine Girdwood.
Thank you, Amanda. After last meeting's questions, I would rule that it's not going to rise to a conflict tonight. Does anyone have a challenge to that ruling? Okay, moving on.
No, finally, I've got the same disclosure as Amanda. I'm on the Girdwood, Imagine Girdwood executive board.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Same ruling as last meeting, June 20th. I do not feel that rises to conflict for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Agenda revisions and approval. I entertain a motion to approve July 18th meeting agenda.
Move to approve.
Can I? This is Guy.
Thank you, guys.
I would like to on agenda item number 16, I talked to Chief Weston and there was a change in that for the resolution to after she had reached out and for prices on new vehicles, and it was up to 200,000 instead of 190. So I think she submitted a new resolution for that, but just to let everybody know, okay?
Thank you, Guy. We'll take that up at agenda number 16. Is there any motion to approve the agenda with that
I move to
update?
approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Amanda Sassy.
Thank you, Amanda. We need a meeting minutes approval for July 5th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Yep. We need a second. Jennifer?
I wasn't going to second. I will second, but then I have a change.
Okay, it has been seconded. Do you have a change to July 5th?
Yes, I noticed one thing that was quick in the meeting and I didn't get to it in time for the meeting packet, but I think that we have missing that we did have a discussion about how there would not be GBOS members on the meeting, and somehow or another that didn't make it into the minutes. So I had proposed altering the third sentence under that item about the Holton Hills, saying that no GBOS member will serve on the committee, but GBOS will ultimately be responsible, et cetera, rest of the sentence.
Margaret, are you writing that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Jennifer, Margaret's writing that down.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, the amendment's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. We'll amend the July 5th minutes then. Thank you. And lastly, the June 20th meeting minutes approval.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second?
I'll
second.
second. This is oh,
Okay, thank you,
Sorry, Jennifer.
Jennifer. Okay. Announcements. The public is encouraged to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. To help discussions stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public, and keep your comments focused on the business under discussion. Please be respectful of everyone's opinions. The GBOS 2023 budget meetings are scheduled and they are listed here. We have one Tuesday, July 26th, 6 p.m., Tuesday, August 9th at 6 p.m. And if we need a third one, it will be August 31st at noon. The Alyeska Highway Seward Highway Interchange Public Open House is Wednesday, July 27th at 6 p.m. here in the community room. And the link is right here probably as well. Introductions, presentations, and reports. Number 1, update on and invitation to attend the meeting regarding Alyeska Highway Seward Highway Interchange meeting. Like I said, Wednesday, July 27th at 6 p.m. We have Taryn Olsen-Yell presenting.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll keep my presentation very brief. Thank you all for your time this evening. Again, we're having our third community open house this next Wednesday, July 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. Please join us at any time. We've been working really hard over the last year to go from 12 concept alternatives a year ago down to what we now think is most likely going to be the recommended conceptual alternative, and we would really appreciate your feedback on it. If you are not able to attend in person next Wednesday, we do have the conceptual alternative posted to our project website, and we would love to get your feedback through the website, through email, give us a phone call anytime between now and the end of August. I would encourage you to review that sooner rather than later. We are going to be working through the CSS process and putting together our application for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing by the end of August. So if you could get us those comments before then, that would be greatly appreciated, and hope to see you all next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Taryn. I look forward to the presentation. And thank you for being here tonight.
Can I ask a question?
We have one question for you, Taryn.
Hi, Tara. Did the way you described that, so there's one particular plan that's being recommended from the for the project, is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. So we took a lot of the feedback that we heard a year ago, and we actually brought this concept alternative to some residents of Old Girdwood a month ago, and some of the emergency respondents saw this as well. So we've gotten a little bit of feedback from the community, and now we're going to be bringing the same materials and just having a wider audience. So yep, just one at this point. By no means is it necessarily the final one. We're looking to, refine this and improve it to make sure it works best for all parties involved.
If it's not prejudicial, what was the type of feedback you were getting from the previous meeting?
I think it's a lot of the concerns that we anticipated, which change is hard, and it is definitely going to be a bit of a change, but the safety improvements were definitely recognized. And so it's making sure that the design really kind of hits as much of the middle ground or makes as many improvements as we can. So overall, pretty positive. A couple things that we definitely want to improve on based on that feedback.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
All right. Thank you very much.
Number 2, DOT and PF Community Transportation Program, CTP, and Transportation Alternative Program, TAP. The CTP and TAP are competitive surface transportation programs to preserve, upgrade, or create new roads, bridges, and trails outside the metropolitan planning organizations, Anchorage and Fairbanks boundaries. Mark Eisman presenting.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mark Eisman. I'm the new Anchorage area planner. I've been in the position just about 3 months, so I'm still kind of learning stuff. But and I apologize for not getting Margaret the information beforehand that I have in the back of the handout, but I will forward it to her so she can add it to the packet. It's still kind of in draft status. I'm really waiting for everything to finalize. But I wanted to put it out here because by the time the next GBOS meeting hits, we might be already asking for nominations to come in. So basically, we have 2 new programs coming out, the Community Transportation Program and a Transportation Alternatives Program. The CTP will be more road focused, either building, upgrading, maintaining current roads, and the TAP project will be more like trail focused, non-motorized. It's expected to have about $100 million for the CTP and about $45 million for the TAP. It is a statewide competitive program, so there could be potentially quite a bit of competition for it. There's going to be a 9% or 9.03% match as a minimum. Although to be competitive, it might have to be a little bit higher. I did have a second handout with the CTP and TAP criteria weights available in the back, kind of demonstrating how projects will be rated when they get nominated. There are going to be 2 phases to these. The first phase will be an intent to apply. It's going to be mandatory that projects apply during that portion to be considered in the second phase, which will be for the college project. So the intent to apply will be a more, I won't say informal because it will be formal. There'll be a state website to go to, an online application that'll be assessed in-house from the planning and planners. We'll go through some screening for eligibility, and then projects that meet the criteria or score high enough to be moved forward. And then those projects, whoever nominated those projects, will be asked to do a more formal submission, which will include a scope, a schedule, and an estimate. One thing to keep in mind as well, though, we are going to be asking for contingencies for these projects. So the cost of everything is going up and doesn't seem to be leveling off anytime soon. So we're going to be asking here. I think for pre-construction, it's 50% contingency, and for construction, 50%. So. One other thing, I think it's anticipated that we'll have more than one call for projects over the next 5 years. So this will be the first round, but there should be other chances as well. Do you have any questions from the board or anybody else?
Any questions from the board? Amanda?
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for your presentation. I hope that we are able to get your handouts put out to everyone with the minutes, hopefully, with follow-up. That'd be great to see. Unfortunately, not there in person. But I was wondering, would the Crow Creek Road be something that would be eligible for one of these projects for improvement?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
So I forgot to mention, the TAP and the CTP are limited to 2 projects per community, 2 each. So you can do 2 TAP projects, 2 CTP projects. And I remember you had mentioned this in another meeting. Crow Creek is would not be considered a separate community. But depending on the type of project, since Crow Creek, depending on where it is on the road, is a DOT maintained road, DOT could potentially sponsor a project if it was, if DOT deemed it in its best interest. So to answer your question, yes, Amanda, Crow Creek could potentially have projects on it. Did you have something in mind? That's taking too much time.
Probably all of them. I have a question, Mark.
Sure.
Did you say 14 million for TAP, but how much for CTP?
It was 45 million for this round and 100 million for CTP.
Oh.
And individual projects are limited to 15 million for a CTP. That's the federal share. So that you could have a 16 million or, well, whatever the match portion would be. And then TAP projects are limited to 5 million.
Couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this applies, this is, that money is for all the areas outside of the metropolitan transportation.
Correct,
area.
yes.
So it's outside Anchorage. Are there other MTAs as well in Alaska?
Only Fairbanks.
Okay.
That's the only other.
Right. So that
Right now, I guess the Matsu boroughs potentially going to be.
Okay, but they not for this project,
Not for this, correct.
Okay.
It's only Anchorage and Fairbanks would be out of the running.
Right.
So,
So this money, this 100 million and 45 million is for the areas outside of Anchorage and Fairbanks.
including Girdwood, since we're.
Yeah, we're outside the MTA. And the other question, which you kind of partly answered, I was going to ask about, does road ownership matter? And it sounds like it doesn't, although
I was talking.
it must be more complex with DOT.
It's a little more complex. I did talk to my supervisor, and since none of the roads are on the Alaska highway system or the national highway system, they should all be eligible.
Got it. Okay.
We have a question in the audience. Could you come forward, please, toward the microphone anyway? Thanks.
My question is, who submits the project? Should that come through Girdwood Board of Supervisors?
That's a good question. Yes, it should be a government entity. So it should probably be submitted through GBOS through the municipality.
Okay, and so you're going to want a resolution of support prior to it being applied for?
I think for the initial, well, let me look at my notes, make sure for sure. I think for the initial phase, the initial phase 1, it doesn't have to. Okay. But once we move, if it's deemed to move forward, yeah, it'll lead resolutions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone online? Oh, yes, Nate, please come forward.
Yeah, I was just curious, this sounds like the beginning stages of a whole lot of money that could be allocated towards transportation. Do you guys have any projects in mind now on the board, or is it truly at the beginning stage of, like, do we have the option of bringing forward projects to you?
Yes, absolutely. So if it's already been if it's already in one of the steps of transportation plans, you don't need to bring it forward. This would be for new calls to be added to that.
Does that include pedestrian access as well? Or could it?
Pedestrian access to what?
Well, one of our biggest issues is kids crossing our highway here, and that highway's getting busier. And, you know, one of the concepts I saw was a pedestrian bridge underneath the highway.
Sure.
So conceptually, would that be applicable to this?
It could be, yeah, absolutely. Has that been brought forward before?
I don't know if it has been, but it's just, yeah, I've seen that concept before in the past and having little kids crossing that highway. It's
Just remember so that would probably go under one of the TAP programs, right? So you're limited to your budget as well.
And then what's the timeline?
If do you have one of the sheets?
I'm looking for.
So there's a timeline on the back. Right now, we're looking, so the CTP and the TAP criteria or project evaluation criteria should be going out for public comment soon. I thought it would already be out, but no, it's not. As well as the nomination, this, as like I said, this hasn't formalized yet, so there should be a formal notice of coming forward. August and October are going to be the initial phase one call for projects.
August and October.
August through October. Yeah. And once those come in, they'll be evaluated, and then through October and January, we'll do the phase two, which will be a much more in-depth process.
Thank you.
Michelle or Chief Weston?
So the underpass that Nick talked about was actually part of the transportation study for the in the 90s-ish, right? And so,
Chief Weston, point of order, could you please come closer to the mic so everyone online could hear your important information?
Here, you can
Margaret, I
be
can
right
hear you.
there. This is a.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So we are having a lot of problems with people speeding on the highway, right? And we still continue to have people driving over and on the bike path. So traffic calming in whatever way for that corridor would be good. We do see people, I routinely see people blast through both crosswalks, right? We almost had kids hit the other day. So anything we can do or DOT can start thinking about that could work as traffic calming would be good, because we don't have law enforcement continually here. And we just have visitors that are so in awe of the beauty that they forget and speed very quickly. So whatever DOT can do, or as a new planner, if you could think about that, that would be huge. Okay.
I have one final question.
Sure.
This will be answered, I'm sure, when the actual criteria comes out, but from previous discussions, my understanding is that TAPS, although it includes trails, it doesn't include recreational trails. It's only kind of point A to point B.
That's a good question. I was kind of under the impression it was all non-motorized,
Oh, that's interesting.
but don't hold me to that.
Right.
So,
Okay, so we'll see that in the
yes,
criteria.
but tax also can be used for stuff like historic stuff like the Iditarod Trail.
Right.
Too, so,
Okay,
yeah. Once the criteria comes out and everything's finalized.
okay,
Maybe it might be a little more.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And,
Mr. Eisen.
if I have more, I'll try to come back for the August meeting.
One more from, please identify yourself as well.
I'm Betsy Cannell. I just have some real concerns about the crosswalk to Timberline. Every time I'm at that corner, there are people that have no idea that you should stop at a crosswalk when there's kids near it. So I would suggest some of those flashers or something safety related on that corner. Thanks.
Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the flashers are working all that well. They're almost more dangerous than they are worthwhile, because the kids depend on them and then the people ignore them. So I would say some sort of island or a roundabout at each one of those intersections to slow people down. Just because I sat at Timberline on my way down here, and some kid was trying to cross and at least 10 people roared through right in front of him, and he had his foot out in the street. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or Chief Weston?
So just to more frame the problem just a little bit more, we have a lot of commercial traffic, large buses, tour buses that are driving through, also driving through the neighborhoods. they might not be like in tune of the fact that most of the kids in the community and people ride bikes everywhere. So that's part of the problem. Like we're a lot different than Chugiak or Girdwood, or sorry, Chugiak or Anchorage, because a lot of people walk everywhere and bike everywhere. And so the pedestrian traffic concerns are huge, especially on those pedestrian crosswalks.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman. In number 3, presentation for the track plat application for Holton Hills project, Tony Hoffman presenting.
Here it comes. Hey, my name is Tony Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company, and I am here to talk specifically about our track plat that we're getting close to trying to submit for the Holton Hills project. I really want to kind of keep this focus on that track plat. And while I can answer some of the questions about the planning of the big picture, my focus as a surveyor is the track plat. So,
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding your document. Let me. You can continue.
okay. As everybody knows, this is the second attempt that has been made on this Holton Hills subdivision. The first attempt, I think it was 2007 or 9, sometime around there, was a large lot subdivision attempt. And it really had no diversity of lots or anything else. And it actually, I've looked at the design, it actually ate up a lot of wetlands. And it was, I hate to say it didn't seem to be real well thought out, but it was not too far off what we're doing. However, we've done this project, we have actually done a lot more wetland study, mapped the streams. We're in a lot better position than we were than they were in, well, I've heard 10 years ago, but we still haven't gotten the staff package to really review why it failed. There you go. So what we're talking about is the 3 tracks, track 1, 2, and 3, Holton Hills, and then there'll be a remnant track, which is the big piece. The 3 tracks of Holton Hills be a total of 60 acres. So we're talking about the overall, which is the next one if you want to roll up on it. The overall of what is in the project, or how we would say, is 488 acres. So we're just at 13% of that total acreage. Now we're not, and it's not necessarily the best, lowest hanging fruit. However, it does have advantages in that it has the water line that runs through it. We have access to the water line. There's a lot of bedrock, so that's not really a plus. There's wetlands, but again, there's wetlands in that whole area. So it is a pretty small piece of that, the bigger chunk of land that we're talking about. There's 3 underlying tracks, and we'll get into that because it's kind of stuff. So we're looking, we're doing this specifically, we need to pull these tracks together and pull them down and get them approved before we can even start talking about really final subdivision design alignments. Because it doesn't, if we can't get through the planning board with this track plat, then it really kind of makes it difficult. We can't really plan too far ahead at this point. We know what our tract outlines are going to be, but what's inside those, there's a lot of things that could change on the next step of the process. So what we talk about tonight is just the tracks. And this is a very common way. This is how we do this. We're not doing a master plan. We're not doing anything except pulling down the large tracts of land. The developer, Connie Oshimura, is going to basically take ownership of those 3 tracks, and the remaining 420 odd acres will retain with HLP. It's not going away. So once we get these tracks approved to the planning board, then we can really look at design. We'll be back here again to start talking about different options for densities, the conditional use application, which will have to happen, plan unit development application, the master plan, concept and revisions, and all those other pieces happen after we pull these tracks together and get them approved. So, and we've talked about this last time we were here, we also have the section line vacation that we have to deal with. And that's part of this process. We've made an application to State of Alaska DNR, and that will also be a municipal application that we'll do with the track. With me tonight is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. If everything goes correctly, and after we get through this meeting, I appreciate you hearing me tonight. GBOS is the planning authority, recognized authority in Girdwood, so that's why we're here. We would have rather gone through the steps of going to the land use committee than GBOS, but you know, we've got to do these 21-day notices, and it's just, we will be back for the land use committee as well. And I know they make the recommendation to you guys. However, we did want to present to GBOS tonight because that's what we do. Okay. So with that said, I'm open to questions about surveying, plating, and other things.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
Mike?
Start. So, so this application, well, first one, simple question. There are two section lines across this. There's also a section line in tracks 3.
Yes.
Is that not being vacated?
No.
Okay.
None at this time. And honestly, DNR's looking at it. We're not even sure if it actually exists the way the land was pulled together. I'm not sure yet. Because we know that this one exists because of the process that the state took it down and transferred it over to the city.
Right. Second question is a process question. So this is basically splitting 3 tracks into 4 tracks, effectively.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there's nothing, what you're doing doesn't involve any change of ownership or any recording of ownership or anything else in that process. That will be done separately, or does it include the change of ownership?
This doesn't necessarily, the ownership will change before the plat records.
Right.
So, but as soon as the plat records, what has been explained to me and has been put in the agreement, and it's not finalized, but it's very close. When the plat records, as soon as it records, that big track goes right back to HLB. And then at that time, the 3 smaller.
When you say back to, it's currently.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry.
So that doesn't change.
No, that won't change. And then, so then Connie Yoshimura will take ownership of those 3 at that time and then take full responsibility for them and lead the process.
Okay. So when does the change in ownership would have to also go through an assembly process?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So that's happened before the recording of the tracks.
That's right. That's correct.
The process of actually
the plat
outlining them and doing the plating.
No, because the HLB isn't the applicant. So that process of the transfer will happen before the plat gets recorded.
Okay. And this, just for clarification, this meeting is the public meeting you have to go through
for the track
application.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay. So it still goes up. This is the application, and then after the application, it goes through the public process, including.
Yeah. Right. And they'll, again, we'll be back here for the other one,
But just on the tracks.
That's right. This is just for the track plat, so I can make that application. That's why we're here.
Any other questions from the board? Here, I saw some hands up. Are there any questions in the room on the process? Betsy, you can come forward.
Mr. Hoffman, do you represent MOA or?
No, I work for the Boutte Company and I represent Connie Yoshimura. But HLB also at this time, since they are also the owner, and they will be signing the application as well.
And could you come a little bit forward, one chair, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace Pleasance. I'm a developer by trade, and so I just wanted to put that out as a disclaimer. It's really hard to see the overall scope of what you're trying to show our community at this point without having a master plan here. And so it's, I think, kind of, and I hate to say this in the context of any type of a large scale development like this requires that master plan to be in a full blown detail so that the community can understand all of the proposed tracks that you want to replat. When do you expect that to happen?
After we get through the platting process or the tract process, then there'll be another application for the lotting.
Right.
For the individual lotting, the conditional use application and the master plan, and all that will come as a different application.
So I've been in the development business for about 25 years. I've never seen it done this way. So it's master plan first, and then you come back into a community showing the respective tracks that you want to look at. That's probably one of the major reasons why this project has some major angst with our community and myself. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I missed this through your dialogue. Will the full acreage be transferred to Connie and then the difference given back to HLB, or will it only be the 16, the 17, and the 26 acre parcel that goes to Connie?
So the way land transfers work, you can only transfer if you own the property. And I believe the way the transfer is going to work, after the assembly approval of transfer, title will vest to her, the plat will record, and then there's a reversion clause where that big tract is right back to HLB.
Okay.
They put some sort of pretty strong lawyerly language in there. There's, that's not going to change.
So the short answer is that Connie will get the 388 acres, 488 parcels, and then we'll revert back the difference.
And then we'll revert back at the closing or at the plat recording automatically.
Thank you for that clarification.
That's a mechanism I really don't fully understand.
We have a question online. Brooks, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I want to make sure I understand what was said about the process. Is the concept is that title transfers when this specific platting process is recorded, so it's approved and then it's recorded, and then title transfers out of the municipality for these the three parcels.
Again, so before the plat records, the assembly has to approve the motion, the action. The land will transfer to Connie Yoshimura, the plat records, and immediately there's a subsequent filing where the big tract, the remainder tract, what's called tract 4 on there, will come right back to HLB. And there's other plans, I guess, for the resort area and other things.
So is this platting process then going forward before the assembly has actually approved of disposing of this public property?
The platting action is, but the platting action won't be approved until that transfer has been approved by the assembly. And it won't record, definitely records.
So the platting, usually plats are approved by the planning commission / platting board. So if this plat is approved by the platting board, that approval will be subject to subsequent assembly approval of deeding the property out.
Now, that's a good question, and I don't know the exact specifics of that transfer. Both Adam, Trombley, and Connie and Mayor are the ones that are talking about that. I don't know the sequencing of it exactly. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you, but I'm, again.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Well, since we've got a few in the room, we'll take Carolina online.
Thank you. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I really apologize if this question has also been hammered to death, but I'm very confused also about the platting process here. Is it my understanding that you've developed the plat, you're transferring the land into an individual's name, and then that plat is then recorded and then it is approved, or what am I missing here?
Okay, again, the 3 tracks that we're subdividing, because, you know, we're creating 4 tracks and 2 of them cross different property lines. They're all owned though, however, by HLB right now. So the land transfer to Connie Yoshimura, to Yoshimura Development will happen right before the plat records or sometime before. And there's a reversion clause where that bigger tract will come right back to HLB. And she will, at that time when the plat records, and it'll go back to HLB, and then she will own those 3 tracts at a total of 60 acres. The 3 new tracts. She will get.
So you're just, basically what you're doing is you're subdividing one big parcel that HLB owns. Is that correct?
Basically, yeah. There's actually 3 parcels that are cobbled together, but yes. They're all owned by HLB at this time.
So the process will be that you are essentially just, you're subdividing it, that whole parcel into 3 separate parcels.
Actually, there's
one
4.
of them is going,
There's
4,
4.
sorry, 4 parcels, and you are deeding the parcels that will be the development to the developer, which is Connie. And then you're keeping one of them, they're deeding it back to you. Is that what the goal is?
No, so there'll be a remnant tract of these 3 big tracts, these 488 acres, that's well over 300, I don't know, 320 something acres, whatever the math is. That will be HLB's land. So then Holton Hills Development will own the 3 tracts that we're creating that work with the terrain and with the studies we've done to date. And those are going to be the ones that will be ultimately developed through another process.
Okay, and that process will be the master title plat that you'll have for the different lots.
That's
correct?
right. That is correct. And there'll be a conditional use application, a planned unit development application, and the master plan.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you for breaking that down.
It is a convoluted process.
Okay, we have a question in the room.
I've never seen it done before like this.
Mike,
And I've got another process.
follow up from that one?
I've just got another process question. So the decision-making body on the actual platting action is the
Platting
board.
On this one is the plat.
That's as far as it goes.
On this one.
But then the transfer component, which has to happen before.
That's a separate,
Separate assembly.
yeah, that goes all the way up.
Got it.
And then the follow-up process after we get these tracks solidified, that goes to planning and zoning, which they're the ones.
Got it. Thank you.
Marco?
How does this work with the area master planning process defined in the Girdwood land use regulations? Because the way I read it says prior to the subdivision or development of an entire tract or parcels within large tracts, an area master plan must be done.
You know, again, I can't really answer that. I don't know the answer. I wish I had a better answer to that. But I just don't know how the area master plan, I know it's going to be addressed at the lotting or the subdivision, the technical subdivision of the tracts, but beyond that,
Because we work with area master plans at LES and they came prior to the tract planning.
Okay, we have another question online, Mr. Hamry?
I'm curious what happens to all the other acreage. Is Holton Hills doesn't retain any rights? The process is a little convoluted, starting back a long time ago when your other 2 partners dropped out and left Connie standing. And I guess I wonder what's going on with the rest of them. Does this whole platting process mean that you're giving up any rights to develop the rest of that land?
There are, it sounds like, yeah, as far as I know, there's no plans for Holton Hills development to be involved in the bigger parcel over by, and I think you're specifically talking about the resort zone land next to the resort. She has no part of that as far as I know. Yeah. That's a whole different part of that RFP and all that other stuff that I don't know anything about, frankly.
Well, yeah, but it's all tied together, although her partners in the RFP process have withdrawn from this particular plating and subdivision effort. That doesn't mean that they've given up their rights to the rest of the land, and that is a pretty convoluted thing. And as people have pointed out, in a large tract like this, it's really common to have a master plan for the whole tract so that you can see how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. So if others are retaining the rights to develop the rest of that land, then the proponents of the RFP have essentially parceled it out on their own and are going their own ways, irrespective of what other people are doing in a coordinated way. So I would be a proponent of seeing a master plan if those other partners retain rights to the rest of that land.
You know, that is a good question about what rights the other applicants that came in with Kushamira in this application. So I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm, again, just facilitating a draft plat or trying to. And if I know there's a lot of pieces involved in it, so I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you. But we'll take that back to the team.
Okay.
Actually, can we, I'm just wondering if we can ask staff to get clarification from HLB about what the status is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Are there any other agreements?
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman and Brandon. And I don't see any other questions online. Marco, go ahead.
Just another comment on the area. You know, I was just wondering how the track boundaries came up with or defined without.
We have done some, you know, what you would call, I guess Brandon would call 10,000 foot planning based on the information we have, which is quite a bit. The wetlands, the topography, you know, we have done a lot of analysis of it, and these tracks will work for a variety of different densities and layouts. Now, what's really going to drive a lot of this is the, you know, the road alignment, not the road alignment, but the costs are just climbing every day on this. And man, I can tell you this is just getting kind of ridiculous to estimate this stuff. You know, it changes month to month. So again, you know, we'll be back here with a master plan and a planned unit development on the tracks. But this will work for our intent, for our purpose. And this, you know, I know the comment's been made that, you know, some people have never seen it done this way. We've actually, Brandon and I have actually done this quite a few large developments in Anchorage and Eagle River. So this is not an uncommon way to do it, but the master plan would be ideal, but that is not something we're doing, and it's not something I'm here to talk about really, the master plan.
You have one more? Okay. One more quickly.
Hi, this is Grace Pleasance again. In the RFP that was awarded in June of 2021, there were several major pages that were redacted. The master plan, or the initial, let's call it, schematic concept drawing, which would have been helpful for this community to look at, has also been omitted. I'm taking that at this point you do have some sort of plan that you're working under, but you're unwilling to share it with the community?
A concept plan in place, but it's just that, it's just a concept.
And it has still not been shown to this community?
I don't think that's accurate. I think there was a previous meeting back in December, if I recall. It was some time ago, but I think that plat was shared, not that plat, but that concept was shared. At least phase one of it, if I recall.
It was phase one that showed.
Yeah.
So again, in the master plan concept, there has not been a concept plan regarding the master plan brought forward to this community at this time. I think it would help. It would help us tremendously if we could see that. Thank you.
Oh, Mike.
Very last, this will be my last question. The application to the plat, is that going to be in a lot more detail than what we're seeing tonight?
Yes, there's a lot of information we took off of there because it's just, there's gonna be probably 5 pages on this plat that shows easements. There's a plethora of easements, wetlands, all that stuff's gotta be shown.
Okay, all those delineations.
Yeah, I mean, we met with DNR to talk about the ordinary high water mark. You know, there's been a lot of stuff we've done to try to get every answer we can.
And that will be in the.
Oh, yeah, that'll be on the plat. Those are all requirements.
Yeah,
the plat agents people make me put on, so it won't be that nice and clean.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Number 4, update of housing developments in Girdwood, including Holton Hills, update from the Holton Hills Housing Advisory Committee. Number 4.
Everybody, I'm Sam Daniel, and I am the co-chair for the newly brought together Holton Hills subcommittee. We met last week and had an organizational meeting, and the co-chairs were elected to be Emma Kramer and myself. We are planning and gave notice that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow from 4 to 6 here in the community room. And that we planned it specifically from 4 to 6 so that there's been a lot of discussion about voices not being heard. And there was brought to our attention that a lot of the folks that work in the hospitality industry have Tuesday and Wednesdays off. And so this was one of the main reasons that we decided to do it at that time in the hopes that some of those folks would participate. So that's going to primarily just be a town hall style listening session to try and make sure that we have an understanding of what the community's concerns are about Holton Hills. We're all getting up to speed and learning as we go along. And once we've had that meeting, I think that we'll sit in our next regular meeting and try to begin to formulate a really concrete list of what the community's concerns are about Holton Hills and how those might be addressed with the current development. And that's really kind of where we're, I mean, I could get way out there in front of myself, which I do often, but that's really as far as we've gotten right now. And just, I wanted to just say real quickly that part of the reason I'm proud to be part of the process is that Girdwood is my bread and butter. I'm a real estate broker here. I don't live here anymore. Did live here for 30 years. And I'm mostly a process-oriented person. I don't really have an agenda. And I mostly am concerned about I see a lot of really valid concerns coming from the community, and I think they need to be addressed. And I'm hopeful of helping to do that, however that may turn out. And I think that the members of the community, Nate is here, he's on the committee. I know Dave Hamry is in the audience. I can't see who all else is there. But I would encourage community members to contact the members of the committee and let them know their thoughts. And, you know, that nothing is written in stone yet, and we're going to do what we can to make sure that the community's voice is heard and that facilitates the change where we can. And thus there's some questions.
Could you remind us the other members of the committee?
Oh, is this
I think you've named 4.
All right. Oh my God. You know, there's me, there's Emma Kramer, there's Nathan Ellis, there's Nico Rains, and there's Brooke Lavender, who I believe I have not yet met. Did I pass? And Dave Hammer. I knew Dave was on there. I already mentioned. Oh, Aaron. Oh, that's so handy. Thank you. I always need those. So it's Dave, Hamry, Emma Kramer, Aaron Eaker, myself, Nathan Ellis, Brooke Lavender, and Nico Rains. Always helps to have a cheat sheet.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. There are 2 questions in the audience or online. Mr. Tenney? Ron, you're on mute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm off of mute. Sam, I was just wondering, have you been, or the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, have you been given any idea if there's any merit to anything you guys come up with? In the past, you know, there's been a couple of votes at GBOS that went one way and the city of Anchorage went the other. And to spend a lot of time on the committee and then find out that it's kind of a smokescreen and they're going to do whatever they want to. It's kind of be important to get some reassurance that you have some impact on what you say after the group meets. Have you heard if there's any power in your group?
Well, you know, technically, we're just in the advisory committee of the Board of Supervisors. So do we have any real power? We can make recommendations. That's really all we can do. What I can tell you, and I love to be completely transparent, is that Aaron Eaker and I did have coffee with Connie Yoshimura Sunday afternoon. And we just discussed the fact that the committee was forming and wanted to set the groundwork to ask if she were open to seeing some changes. And she said, yes, she was. And so, you know, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So yes, I think there's merit to potentially having change that will come forward from this committee. Or I would not have volunteered to be on it, quite frankly, because I have better ways to spend my time than spinning my wheels. So that's the answer I've got for you, Ron.
I'm just being a little facetious, but if I'm a developer, I'd promise you anything too. But on that note, I just hope they do listen because it's very important to Girdwood. Thank you.
I totally agree.
Thank you. Jennifer and then Carolina.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for all your work on this. And I just had a quick question. I didn't hear you quite correctly. It was you and Connie, and who was the other person who met on Sunday?
Aaron Eaker, who is a member of the committee.
Okay, but not Emma.
No, Emma was still out fishing as far as I know. Well, she's back now, but Emma will be involved from here on out. But yeah, we two got together with Connie, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Carolina, go ahead.
I'm just wondering where this information for this meeting will be posted. I see it here on the screen, but the click here to join meeting is not accessible from, as you know, from this document. So is this going to be posted somewhere for the public?
We're a subcommittee of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and all the meetings will be posted both online and Emma, I don't know if Emma's there or not, but I can't tell. But Emma has volunteered to also post it on social media. So this first meeting may not have gotten as much publicity as we would like, but we're gonna get the word out. And you were gonna help with that, weren't you?
Real quick, Carolina, everything is on the GBOS website here for everything on the committees in Girdwood. So muni.org/GBOS. Lisa, did you have something?
I'm just adding that I also took this document to a lot of the restaurants and made sure that the employees there knew that this was coming up, so.
Good. Dave Hamry, your hand is up.
I'll pass.
Okay, thank you. Mike.
It was in response to Ron's question. One difference between this and a lot of the other things that we have often got ignored at is when something, for example, goes just to the planning board or it goes to planning and zoning, they're appointed bodies, and they're often, you know, they're often made of developers and other people in the development community, and they're not necessarily representative or responsive to the community down here. This has to go through the assembly, and because it has to go through the assembly, that's kind of the choke point. That's the point at which we're going to have maximal influence. So that's the, you know, that's the thing to keep in mind, that it is very different. And I know both of our assembly members and several other assembly members I've spoken to in person have said they're paying a lot of attention to the build development, and they're very interested. They want to know what the community feels about it. And they're obviously getting some sense of that through other methods as well.
Thank you. Brooks, your hand is up.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all the members of the committee who have volunteered to serve on it. I can't stress enough how important it is for people to engage on issues in our community, whether it's this or any other ones. And I know from experience, it takes a fair bit of time, and I really appreciate that this group is willing to devote that time. And then I'm asking if input to the committee is funneled through the GBOS mailbox. Is that the correct avenue to use, or is there some other way to send emails and with input?
I think the best way is through the GBOS inbox. So gbos@muni.org.
Thank you, Brooks. And before I stop, I do want to mention that even today, I tried to educate an assemblyman. My optometrist is Dr. Boland, who got elected to the assembly. And actually, I'm in his assembly district in beautiful Midtown Anchorage. And he asked me about Holton Hills and what the community thought. And I gave him an earful. So he understands that we have legitimate concerns, that I think that, as Mr. Edgington pointed out, that we're going to hopefully be able to get some good traction on this. I'm really encouraged by what I've heard so far. If there's nothing else, I'll go away.
Margaret, one more thing.
I just wanted to point out that there were some other submissions that were related to this topic. One of them is on the screen right now. That one came forward from a community member. So please take a look at that. And then there was a new comment that came in as well. And this information is also going forward to the group that'll be meeting tomorrow at 4. So that's it.
And I remembered one more thing. I know there's another group meeting tomorrow night that's been meeting on Holton Hills, and I will be here for that too, because I want to hear what the committee has to say.
Did you invite your optometrist?
Yeah.
Did you invite the optometrist?
Well, no, I didn't.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you to all the members of the committee and people that will reach out. We appreciate your time very much. Mr. Schultz, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I've been here the whole time, and I will do my best to call into the 4 o'clock meeting tomorrow. I just found out about it, but I was planning on attending the second meeting tomorrow night at 7, and just want to make sure that I understand from my viewpoint, the subcommittee is the committee that's going to speak on the behalf of Girdwood. So I just want to make sure there's alignment between these two groups, so we don't have multiple voices and make it a confusing situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to number 5, legislative reports. Margaret, did you see Senator Roger Holland or Representative James Kaufman online?
I don't know that I have.
Okay. And then Randy Stoltz, we have you here if you'd like to give a report, or Suzanne LaFrance if she's in.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Let me get to my notes here real quick. So I guess as we just had that discussion on Holton Hills, I do plan on coming down to the meeting tomorrow night at 7. I won't be able to make the one at 4 other than calling in, but I'll do my best to call in and listen to those comments as well. Obviously, it's probably the most important thing that's occurring in Girdwood. And I've been talking to Adam. Adam's open to listening to Girdwood, to trying to meet the needs of Girdwood, either through Holton Hills or a separate parcel that is released. Other things, in Anchorage, the current homeless crisis kind of reached a peak with the closing of the COVID emergency response at the Sullivan, and quite a few homeless being relocated to Centennial Park. And they're working on how to best manage that location, as well as how to move those that need further assistance away from Centennial Park and into a better sheltering area. There is a plan that was put forward by Assembly members Perez Verdilla, Rivera, and Voland that is looking to allocate about $20 million towards the homeless cause. And we'll discuss that in the coming weeks. Also, AO 2022-60, the AO to remove an elected official was passed on Tuesday and was vetoed by the mayor, I believe, today. And we'll be meeting regarding that on Friday as the assembly. And then let's see what else. There was also taxes are at the forefront of everyone's mind with our bills coming due. There was also a, I believe, a referendum introduced by Assembly members Dunbar, Quinn Davidson, that's submitting for a ballot proposition Anchorage voters that would increase the Anchorage residential property tax exemption from 50,000 to 75,000. And that's in relation to the HB 411 that was passed by the Alaska State Legislature on July 11th. So still need to learn more about that, exactly how it's going to impact us should that be approved. And then lastly, we'll be meeting on Friday as well from 11 to 3 p.m. For our third work session on the America Rescue Plan Act Round 2 distribution, reviewing all the projects. Girdwood's done an amazing job of voicing for your projects, primarily Run Road and Little Bears. So appreciate that support and keep it coming. Don't let those voices die out until we have that final decision. And with that, I'll just open it up for any questions if you have some.
Thank you. Mike?
So, Brandy, thank you. When do you expect the final decision for the ARPA funding?
Boy, no bets on that. I would have thought we would have had it sooner. I think what we're hoping to get out of this Friday session is approval for the projects that we can agree upon. And I don't want to get any hopes up on what those are. I will say that several of the Girdwood projects received quite a bit of support, so I'm optimistic. We won't make it through all 52 million in request, but we're just trying to get the ones that have more unanimous support and are urgent is from a time standpoint, get those out. And I'm hopeful that we'll vote on those at the next assembly meeting and get those moving forward.
Okay,
So
thanks.
kind of a non-answer. Apologize, Mike.
That's okay. And two other things. I think the 2022-60 was also about removal of service board members as well. So not
that
just
is correct.
It also is us. And
yes.
Finally, I was quite deeply involved in HB 411, so I can follow up and give you the gory details of that as well if you'd like.
That would be outstanding. Appreciate it, Mike.
Any other questions for Mr. Schultz? We have a hand up online, Carolina.
Yeah, I just was wondering how many plans the assembly has reviewed so far in terms of the closing of the Sullivan Arena. How many plans has the assembly reviewed at this point?
What do you mean by plans for?
Propositions for what to do after the Sullivan Arena is closed. I know that some assembly members, the plan that you're about to review coming up, has that been the only one, or has the assembly looked at others?
Really, the administration's handling the majority of it. The assembly put forth another hotel purchase, some funding of some other hotels for rooms, as well as there was the Coalition and Homelessness has put forth a plan to set aside a single park area for managing those that prefer to camp outdoors and put that under a service like we had with 99+1 at the Sullivan. And one thing that's come out of this has just been a need for more communication from the administration. They're communicating with some, but not others on their the plans of how they're handling this situation.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was driving at with my question, is because it's really impossible for us to figure out what the assembly is doing and what the administration is doing, because we don't have access to that until it comes out in the Newsminer. So it'd be really nice to to be able to have some information out there for the public that is concerned about this as well.
No, agreed. And there is a let me just look at my notes here real quick. I believe there was a meeting this week. Sorry, it must have been last week. There was a meeting on housing and homelessness. Those are usually our best way to get information. And let me just double check my calendar, make sure it's not there. I recall seeing that just recently. I thought it was this week. So I have right now my calendar. I'll have to check, make sure it's actually happening. But Committee on Housing and Homelessness meeting is scheduled from 11 to 12:30 at the Lusac Library in the Denali room. So that's our next update. I'm sure this is going to be front and center of our discussion topics and what we'll be meeting about.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you again, Randy, for being here this evening.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next is Bryce Wilbanks from the mayor's office. Bryce, are you here?
Oh, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Hey, actually, Carolina, thank you for the questions earlier to Assemblymember Sol. Those are, I'm actually here hopefully to provide some more information regarding, the Centennial Campground and the homelessness response. So first off, I'll go into a report and then answer questions at the end per usual. So with that being said, just a few quick minor updates. Property taxes, as you are aware, are due here July 31st, either by mail or in person at City Hall. So just be sure to take care of that, as the deadline might sneak up on you with the summer being, at least to the last few days, as nice as it's been. So just be sure to take care of that. Secondarily, just wanted to mention, Mr. Sol, you mentioned it already, but the mayor today vetoed AO 2022-60 on the basis of the 60 being the one that provides a path to remove elected officials and service board members. And he vetoed it on the basis of being unconstitutional, as well as it actually creating major conflicts with charter as it is written and as it's presented. So the assembly, as Randy said, will be meeting on that this Friday. So next, I kind of wanted to jump into the Centennial Campground response and hopefully provide some questions. Unfortunately, members of the media and some members of the assembly have been, for lack of a better word, disingenuous and have been spreading disinformation about what the actual condition, both in the mayor's office and municipal manager's office, are there on site every single day to evaluate and adjust needs at the campground. So right now, campers have access to clean toilets, fresh water, showers, and Wi-Fi. Most of these services actually weren't even available at Sullivan, such as the Wi-Fi and showers. And the toilets are way cleaner even at the Centennial Campground. So there are about 300 campers currently at the campground, give or take based on the day, only 60 of which actually came from the Sullivan Arena. So there's kind of a misnomer that's spreading through the community saying that these are all Sullivan Arena camper or Sullivan Arena people who left the camp or who left the homelessness response at Sullivan Arena. That's not fully true.
Okay, I think Bryce has also
Bryce is now.
also been muted.
Sorry, Bryce, we lost you for a minute.
Okay, so I imagine the last thing you guys heard was regarding the campers coming from around the city, or which was it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. So they came from around the city and are congregating now at the Centennial Campground. So the conditions, as I kind of mentioned, are anything but deplorable and dangerous, as ADN would have you believe. It's actually quite the contrary. It's quite peaceful. So we highly encourage actually all members of the community to visit the campground. So with that, also the MOA currently is providing on-site staff support through the MOA. So this is providing information as well as monitoring. The Anchorage Health Department is constantly at the campground, placing people daily. There are 2 security guards on staff 24/7 monitoring the property. And there are numerous nonprofits and other services being provided at the campground. A bunch of nonprofits have stepped up and helped provide, as well as Beans Cafe for 3 meals per day. Now, there's more news coming later this week that we can mention a little bit now. And that is that there are some other nonprofits that are stepping up, taking an even more active role in placing people at this campground that we're excited to announce here soon. So with that being said, the campground's always looking for donations. They're actively being solicited by our nonprofit partners. And with that said, we are collecting them at the log cabin and then dispersing them to the nonprofits as requested by the donors. So they can always be dropped off at the campground. So I hope that answers some initial questions, but of course, I'm happy to answer additional questions. And so that concludes the report that I have. And again, back to the chair for any questions.
Thank you, Bryce. Questions from the board?
I have one question. One thing that's really confused me is the mayor made a statement that the Centennial Campground is nothing to do with the homelessness response. But obviously, what I'm hearing from you is the municipality is doing lots of work there for the homelessness response. So that sounds like a mismatch. What's actually the situation?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, Mike. So yeah, Centennial Campground is not a homelessness response. That's fact. It's not a homelessness response. There are multiple community partners who are offering homelessness services at this camp, and any person, homeless or not, is welcome to camp at the campground and stay there. It's open. It's not restricted in that capacity. So it is not a homelessness response by the municipality. It's a campground.
Does that mean the services provided there are not funded by the municipality?
That is correct. Services provided there are provided by the nonprofits, and then Anchorage, we currently already have services that have been provided there through Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Bryce, for being here this evening and coming to our meetings each month.
Oh, of course. And I'm with my email in the chat for anybody who has any additional questions or would like to reach out, on anything Centennial Campground or anything else related. Very happy to chat and field concerns and report back to the mayor.
Great, thank you. Next up is Anchorage School Board Liaison. Andy Holloman is here.
How do you do? Make sure you can hear me okay. Not a whole lot to report right at the moment. Early July is a real quiet time in the Anchorage School District. A lot of administrative staff are off during that period. Of course, there's a lot of work going on in the buildings in terms of construction and renovation and whatnot, but board meetings have been on a little bit of a hiatus also. So I don't really have a lot of news to bring you other than at the moment, we're hoping to open in a normal fashion and just have a normal year at school. Happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Holloman?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Andy. Thank you for joining. Last couple of years, Kelly Lessons was the liaison to Girdwood, and one thing I asked her at the beginning, around about the beginning of each school year, is what are the enrollment numbers like? Do you know that yet?
We never really know that until school opens and kids show up. I have not heard a projection yet because we do have pre-enrollment, but I can tell you from when I was a teacher, buildings don't really know. There's a pretty significant variation, more at some schools than others. That's why we have what we call holdback positions, where most schools are a little bit underassigned staff until we have registration in the first couple of days of school. We're always surprised a little bit. And, an elementary school might have 20 or 30 more, or 20 or 30 fewer children than we expected. Middle schools and high schools, sometimes we can be off by 100 or so. So it doesn't mean much until we open the doors and people actually show up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Holloman. I presume we'll see you in August.
Great. And I'll put the email address for the school board in the chat box and put mine in also if anyone wants to email me directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Supervisor Reports. Let's start with Amanda, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you.
Quick question for Andy.
Sorry, Amanda, I did see a hand up, but I didn't see it quite in time. Mr. Holloman, we do have a question for you really quick. Go back.
Yeah, right. This is Brett Wilbanks. Hey, Mr. Holloman, just out of curiosity, was there ever any exploratory information for expansion of the Girdwood School to include, say, a footprint for high school or those grades beyond middle school? And more of a curiosity question, if the districts had a chance to explore what the future needs might be, and if you had any insight to that. Thank you.
I've never heard anyone discuss it directly. One thing we are doing, if there's capacity in an elementary school wants to have 7th grade. I'm sorry, I'm getting myself backwards. If there's a capacity issue, we've had some schools that have moved their 6th grade to a middle school, and that's created capacity within the elementary building. And in the places we've done it, it's generally been optional, and students in the 6th grade kind of have a 6th grade experience, except they do have access to some of the elective classes and whatnot. So if the building began to get crowded, I think that would probably be the first thing they would look at, is seeing if there were people that wanted to, say, send their kids to either Golden View or to I'm going to embarrass myself by not being able to remember the middle school that's south of Diamond High School. I have to apologize. As far as actually expanding, I doubt, for what we try to offer at middle school and high school, I'd be surprised if we have enough students coming out of Girdwood to be able to do that in a good way. We try to have more electives, and the staff has to be quite a bit more varied. I've never heard it discussed, but I'll write it down and ask. We do have a demographics department that looks at pressures from population and growth and shrinkage and all that. And I'll find out and have a little better information for you at the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you. It's just with all the discussion of the expansion of residential availability in the valley and what that outlook looked like. So I look forward to hearing that. Thank you.
Okay.
We have another question in the room really quick for you, Mr. Holloman.
Okay.
Mr. Holloman, are you aware that the Girdwood School is a pre-K through 8 school?
I am, and I forgot it in the moment. Yes, thank you.
Okay, back to number 6. Thanks again, Mr. Holloman.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Reports with Amanda, if you're still ready.
Yes, thank you. Nothing much to report. We did not have a PSAC committee meeting because it was the 4th of July when we were supposed to hold it. But we did confirm a new committee board member, Emily Lewis. So really stoked to have a full board again. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Guy, if you're there online still, you have an update? Let's see, Guy.
Yeah, thanks, Brianna. No, not much. Just we would like to keep the the EMS funding as a line item on, front and center for the muni when we meet with them next, but no other update besides that.
Thank you. Jennifer online.
Thank you. Just real briefly for roads, the Crow Creek, Lower Crow Creek Road continues to be an issue, particularly trying to get signage there for the speed limit. And it's something that we keep working on and nothing keeps happening. And then there's also, I was asked to mention that there's no signage at the intersection of Gunnysack and Sproat. Yield signs are in the nearby area, but no sign at the 4-way intersection. So those are continuing issues that the community is trying to deal with.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'll go ahead next for my report for Parks and Recreation. Just announcing that it is posted now that the 2023 nonprofit recreation grant is going to be available for applications August 1st through September 16th for nonprofits and those formally sponsored by qualifying as nonprofit organizations seeking grant funding for recreation related projects offered in 2023. The qualifying nonprofit organizations must operate within Girdwood Valley service area, and the funding is contingent upon municipal approval of the GBOS 2023 operating budget. And GBOS sets aside $35,000 in grant funding to be split among these requests and qualifying for nonprofit recreation grants. So these are posted at the post office, the library here, Parks and Recreation Office Bulletin Board, and at muni.org/GBOS. September 16th is the deadline at 3 p.m. That is all I have for updates. Mike?
Thank you. Obviously, a lot is happening on Holton Hills, but we're going to be we've discussed that so far, and we'll discuss it later. The ordinance to change the accessory dwelling unit regulations for Girdwood was on the last assembly agenda, and it was the only item they never got to. So that will be appearing again next Tuesday next week, in front of the assembly. I think that's it. Oh, actually, I don't know, Jennifer, do you want to mention the new signs at the end of Loveland? Just remember, it's been a very long-running discussion.
Go for it.
Okay. There are, we finally got the stop sign installed at the end of Loveland before the route, the effective four-way in the winter into the parking lot. And I believe the stop signs are also installed at the end of, I think it's Alter Alpina and Garnish, if I remember correctly. There were some others onto Timberline. I don't know if Kyle is still there. Maybe Kyle can clarify.
That's correct. Alpina and Alta and DeEtte, I believe, those signs were put in, and also there on Loveland.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marco, did you have a question?
Yes, what was the accessory use ordinance?
The accessory dwelling use ordinance is something we've been discussing for a long while. It got passed by planning and zoning. It went in front of the assembly for final adoption last Tuesday, and they didn't get to that item. There were other items that took all the time. So it will be up in front of the assembly again for public hearing next Tuesday.
Can you give a synopsis of what?
Yeah, sure. It's we have discussed this many times over the last couple of years, but the main things are it's a broadening of the regulations. So it's opened up. You can have larger ADUs. There isn't a lot size restriction for whether they're detached or attached. There's a number of other modifications. I don't remember them all off by heart, but I can happily point you to the documentation.
Can you remind me, I know you mentioned it before, but so with the people would be allowed to do short-term rentals with the auxiliary housing unit if their home in Girdwood was their primary home?
The way the regulation works now is you can only have auxiliary within Girdwood. You can only build an auxiliary accessory dwelling unit, an accessory dwelling unit if it's your primary residence, if your primary residence or the ADU when you build it is occupied as your primary residence. That doesn't change in this regulation. There's a separate issue, which is not part of this regulation, about how we deal with short-term rentals, but that's a separate issue. So it doesn't change. It's the same as was before. There is a move. One of the things that made this complex is there's also a set of changes which are being proposed for Anchorage ADU regulations. And originally planning wanted to combine them, and then they realized that the changes in Anchorage are going to take far too long and going in a different direction. So we separated them out again, and this one's going through just the good changes.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next for reports is service provider reports for 5 minutes each. Chief Weston is here. You could give us an update, please.
Hi there, Michelle Weston, Fire Chief for Girdwood Fire and Rescue. So first, thank you. Thank you for not burning down our community during high fire danger, right? I think it was sort of all of us collectively working on that. So thank you for helping with that. Forest Fair was super busy for us. We survived Forest Fair, which was huge. We did have people on paid staffing going into Forest Fair. We talked to the municipality about if we had to do a wildfire evacuation, what that would look like, and it became very evident that we would be sort of on our own with the 2 Whittier officers to evacuate everyone during Forest Fair, during the 8,000 people here. So we fully staffed through the weekend. We had 21 calls over the 4 days. Most of those were heat exhaustion calls that didn't require transport. We did at one point have 3 calls at once. We did not have to call in AFD for support. And then we did have, unfortunately, the tragic fatality of a beloved community member at the end. So that was basically Forest Fair for us. It went well. We had FirstNet down, which is a command bus that boosts sort of the cell capacity for first responders. That worked well. And we were also able to have the command bus once again as base. I want to thank the Forest Ferries for really taking emergency management seriously. They practiced evacuating procedures, and they also practiced active threat or active shooter procedures, which was huge before Forest Fair started. And then also every year we just get better and better at how we do the layout of it. Probably next year, the fire marshal from Anchorage recommended that we might pre-plumb part of the areas. So good job, community. In terms of us, you might see there's a giant trailer outside the fire station. That's the live fire training prop from the state of Alaska, and we have it for free this week and last week. And we're the first fire department on the road system to actually go through with that and do the training, and it was really good because otherwise what we have to do is bring people into Anchorage to train. So it was really nice to be able to have the prop there and be able to train everyone together and still be in response mode for the community. And then during Forest Fair, we did have a child under the age of 5 pick up a small baggie of something that had cocaine in it, some type of drug from the park. That child was evaluated. So I wanted to just sort of give out a sort of safety warning. If you have small kids and they're in the park and they pick up a baggie and they might think it's candy, just to watch your kids to make sure that it is actually, that they're not picking up baggies and thinking that they are not, that it's candy when it's actually not. So just FYI, I think we're all very, I think we all just have a level of safety in the community that we think everything's okay, but we should always be aware that things are not that way sometimes. Additionally, we've had 2 drivers that were reported to us, although we're not police, that were driving erratically, one up and down through the ditch by the Elias Highway, Seward Highway intersection, and then another right over the Merck that almost hit 2 kids, stop sign, and then almost hit someone else. And they came over to the fire station and we called and did a ready report on them. But just, and it was a rental car, turned out. So just a reminder, if you do see people driving crazy or on the bike path driving crazy, to call 911, do a ready report on them. Always take a picture if you can in a safe way with the license plate, and then you can call it in. So that's it for me. Any questions? I'm sure I have other things that I should have told you, but that's
Staffing question.
Staffing question.
Did you have a class earlier this year, or are you having later this year?
We did. We just have we have 4 members that started in spring. 3 of those are off probation now. They just finished actually this last week. One has had a work trip, so as soon as they're back, they'll be off probation. We're going to have a fall class, and then we have 1 recently retired AFD member that possibly will be joining us. And we're working as a community member, and we're working on a lateral policy. So what we don't have is we don't have a policy for people who might come in with a lot of experience from Anchorage Fire and be already in the area-wide EMS system. So the policy that we have really takes it to like, oh, you know nothing, start. So we're working on policies with the membership advisory group. We'll be having that person join us.
Okay, so another one in full.
Yep.
Thanks.
And we have a firefighter 1 class, and we're just waiting. It'll probably be October because we have a firefighter 1 class finishing in September.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Weston, for your report. I don't see any questions online. Next, we have Chief O'Shea. Is he on the call, or can Kyle speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to it. Chief O'Shea is out on medical leave, but I did speak with him today. And Forest Fair was very active for the Whittier Police Department. They had full staffing. They actually did lose one officer as his wife went into labor halfway through Forest Fair, but they were able to cover him. As I said, very active just with crowd management and dealing with what Forest Fair can bring and sometimes the negative side of it. So, but overall, they felt really good about how it went. And there was quite a bit of towing this year with Forest Fair and parking in front of hydrants and things like that. I think 15 cars were towed and impounded over the weekend. And there were some instances where they helped with opening up lanes so emergency vehicles could get through. Very busy there. We're also working with Whittier right now on the contract renewal, and they're trying to work out their finances to give us an idea of what the contract will entail. So we hope to get that here in the coming 2 weeks and then start presenting that to the Public Safety Advisory Committee and working that out so that we have a new contract in place at the end of this year in that aspect. So that's it with the Whittier Police for this time. I can move into my other report if you like, Brianna.
Go ahead, unless there's any questions for Kyle for police updates. Carolina, do you have a question for Kyle about police?
Yeah, it's actually maybe even for Chief Weston. A while ago, we were asked to submit some comments about supplying additional funding for emergency contact, like phones along the stretch of the Seward Highway, which stretches both of our, the Whittier and the Girdwood departments pretty thin in terms of being able to get to those places, and, a huge safety risk for travelers along that highway that can't contact emergency services. And I'm wondering if there's been any update on if any funding was allocated for that, or if those phones will be installed.
Thank you for the question. Chief Weston's right here.
Hello there. During spring, I kind of took it upon myself to create a working group, and basically brought in U.S. Forest Service, DOT, the DOT planners, Highway Safety Corridor planners, the State Emergency Management Center people, Chugach Electric, Verizon, AT&T, FirstNet, trying to challenge them to come up with solutions for improving, especially along turning an arm, but turning it past cell communications and provide additional communications, right? And so with the theory of surely you can make cell service happen in those dead zones, right? The 30-mile dead zones. Not so much. They apparently can't. They did, but we did get the regional AT&T and Verizon people, everybody looking at it collectively, and also talking to Chugach Electric on how they could work together and how they could come up with solutions. AT&T did provide a way that they think with using a commercial product, it could be improved. And that was about $265,000 with the subscription service. I sent that to some legislators, but I haven't heard back from that. As you know, I have been working with recently retired Senator Michichi on this for 3 years. But on the Verizon front, Verizon is possibly going to be putting some solution in with help from DOT and the U.S. Forest Service. But I don't know how the funding is on that, but they actually have been working on a solution to at least boost some Verizon coverage. So although there was, power. That's why we would have it all power hasn't been done. And as it turned out, even though it's been talked about for years, we've done all this media on it. Electric and the cell companies hadn't really talked to each other, so just getting them together to talk was good. Additionally, AT&T, their business solutions, gave us an opportunity, gave us a quote on a CRW, I think it's called, CRT. Anyway, it's basically in a box, a new solution that's come out in the last 6 months. It's in a box. You could put it on the back of a Suburban and drive it around and turn it on when you have an emergency and boost cell coverage. So I did put in a health grant to the municipality for that, but was denied because I thought, wow, wouldn't that be awesome to stick in the back of a pickup truck when we have a SAR in Winter Creek and drive it as far as I can, put it up, and that will boost the coverage area for that location. But unfortunately, not so much. We haven't got funding for it yet, but that would be about 65,000 plus some subscription service. You could turn it on and off. But what I did find out, and I am giving you far more information than you probably ever wanted to know, but I think this was kind of cool, is with FirstNet, when they agreed to bring over the Colt that was here during a Forest Fair, they sent up the guy that does the cell communications for emergency responders for the Super Bowl. And he came and we had a meeting, which that was amazing. And he told me, because I asked him, how come when we had the guy on Winter Creek, the senior that had biked and was lost, and we couldn't get a hold of him, all of a sudden, and I'd left him lots of messages, all of a sudden at 12:30 at night or whatever, he called and was able to call me back just for 2 minutes at a time and say, hey, this is where I am. I walked down the trail across a log. I think I'm on North Face, which I said, you're not on North Face. And then I said, could you send me your SAR coordinates? And then it went click, and then we never heard from him again. But we did find him based on up Winter Creek, go across that. Well, look, there's a log across the creek, and we did find him. So that was a huge thing. So I said, how come just for those brief moment of time, those 2 minutes, we were able to talk to that guy, right? And it turns out the AT&T FirstNet Super Bowl guy told me that, you know, we have a bubble of coverage. And so it's usually busy, but for that brief moment in time at 12:30, everybody must have got off the internet, right? And at a brief moment in time, everybody must have got off the internet, and that bubble just expanded just a little bit enough that he was able to call back. So I think that was good knowledge for us in terms of if we have a SAR in the future, we need to know, we need to be cognizant about maybe if we all reduce our cell cover, our use of internet, we might, or AT&T, we might just get enough bandwidth to expand the bubble just a little bit for someone to make a call. And for that guy, I mean, he had to be airlifted out. He had a leg injury with the National Guard after we found him. So we wouldn't have found him any other way, right? So just I think that's a good sort of heads up of how we can sort of treat the system. Is that an answer? That's a big answer. But a good story.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. But yes, funding would be awesome.
Thank you. Okay, Kyle, back to your roads, parks and rec, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it real brief because I know you guys have a long meeting, but we received $1.2 million from the state capital budget for the new suspension bridge. So we'll be working forward on that process. Forest Fair from the Parks and Rec side went really well. We appreciate Forest Fair's great partnership and how well they left the park after they were done. We're working on a fuel variance with our contractor, Western Construction, as the fuel has skyrocketed and has really eaten into their margins and abilities to operate. So we're working with purchasing this week on that. Storm repairs from the Halloween storm repairs have been completed with the paving of Rouen. And we are in the process of seeking reimbursement. Our expenses from last fall have been accepted by the state. And so we should probably, hopefully within the coming weeks, start to see checks coming back for that. And then lastly, we are working on a fish culvert replacement for Stowe Drive, and we're waiting on one permit there to put in a new fish culvert that crosses underneath the road. That's all I got for now.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions for Kyle?
Quick question on Forest Fair. What was the parking like? I mean, I know we ran out of parking at the Day Lodge relatively early on Saturday. Did that cause problems?
We had some violators who broke the law. That's where the towing came in. But for the most part, it was manageable. People just pushed into the neighborhoods on Saturday. And, there's like this period between, I would say between 1:30 and 5, where you start to get this peak, where you got people still coming in and you start getting people going out of Valley in that aspect. So yeah, it was with that nice weather, we saw a good group of people here.
Okay, thank you. To public comment. Persons offering public comment must state their full name and address. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and must be on subjects not listed on the agenda. Anyone here for public comment tonight? I see one hand up online. Mr. Golland, are you making public comments? Hi.
I am, yeah. I just wanted you all to know that Sam's optometrist is with you tonight. And I've been listening, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get more information about the Holton Homes project. And also, poor Mike sat through the entire Anchorage Assembly meeting, and we never got to the ADU item, but I hope that we will. And that's something I'm very excited about looking at as well. So at the next meeting, Mike, I hope that you don't have to sit through the whole thing for naught. But anyway, just wanted you all to know that even though I don't represent your district, I'm paying attention and I am listening. And yeah, happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome to the assembly.
Thank you very much.
You rock, dude. Tomorrow night too.
Okay, any other public comments? Lene, please come. You're at the mic almost.
Yep, this is Lene Doran, PO Box 1064. And I just wanted to say, for those of you who don't know, that there will be a town hall listening session tomorrow with our assembly members and any additional assembly members who would like to come down. It's going to be here in the community room, sponsored both by Girdwood Inc. and by the Girdwood Chamber of Commerce. And we are going to do a format similar to what Rotary does, where we're going to request that people email questions in. This is about the Holton Hills project. And you can email holtonhills@gmail.com, or we'll have little note cards that we'll be passing out and people can write questions down that we will gather up and then pose to different organizations and the assembly members as well, who will be present at the meeting tomorrow. So, thank you.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, if I didn't say that.
Thank you, Lene. Any other public comments?
Crystal Hoke, I just wanted to ask our community members to send an email to all of the assembly members. If anybody has the chat available, if you want to take note of this, it's WWM as in Mike, AS@muni.org. And if you could tell them that you are in support of the Girdwood Workforce Child Care Project, I would greatly appreciate it. I think this is our biggest opportunity to fund a new building for Little Bears and to have safe childcare in our valley. And so I would really appreciate any support in sending those emails. Again, it's WWMAS@muni.org. And also separately, I love the idea of the under the road bypass for the community transportation grant, and also would love to see the swoops addressed. So if we could do maybe a joint thing where it's improvements upon the pedestrian safety corridor to both the swoops, addressing sidewalks where we don't have any, and maybe an underground passageway. I think that would be a great project in addition to Crow Creek Road. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have one more online. Is that Carolina with your hand up or someone else?
Yeah, actually, sorry, I just had a question about tomorrow's meeting. Is my understanding that the questions are only going to be taken in person, or are you able to take questions from the public online?
Good point. I would think what we would do to handle that is that you would put your question in chat form, and that the moderators of the event will select questions and just make sure we're not getting duplicity and things like that. So you could ask your questions via chat.
Thank you.
Any others, Margaret?
And we think it's just Carolina's hand still up.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Old business, number 8, update on status of HLB draft 2022 annual work program. I feel like this is a placeholder unless there is any kind of update. The website looked the same. I checked it earlier.
No update this time.
Thank you, Kyle. Number 9, agenda item LUC 2201-06, Girdwood Industrial Park concerns, power and plating.
Sorry, I did have a quick question on the last one, but
Sorry.
it could be covered on this maybe as well.
Okay.
Do we know when we're going to see an agenda for the next HLB Advisory Commission? I
do not. I have not talked to him directly about that, but I could ask.
Ron, if Ron Tenney's still online, he may have it. Or even Brett.
Yeah, Ron Tenney just talked to Brett today, and I've not seen anything, and I know the meeting is not on the website currently, so
yeah,
your guess is as good as mine. Brett may know more than I.
But it would happen next week, wouldn't it? If it was going to happen.
Yeah, no update. Same as you, Ron. I haven't heard any further word.
Thanks.
Just to chime in on that, I do have in my notes that the 28th at 11:30 would be the meeting if it is happening.
Okay. We may not see it till Friday.
Yeah, they sent us a call-in number, but I've not seen it to the public, but that was given the day of the last meeting, so I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's canceled, but I'm just guessing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was possibly a work session for that 28th at 11:30. Okay, back to number 9. Sorry to jump in so fast. So Kyle, go ahead on industrial park. You ready?
No progress on this. You know, HLB had the idea of platting out and selling that track down there, and then retaining the land that we use for public services, which would be the road maintenance lot, the fire department lot. And, you know, with the change in staff, those things have all just been stalled out. So we don't have any developments on that at this time. So we're planning on operating as we have in years past with our remote power that's off our lot.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to number 10, update on GBOS resolution 2020-011, resolution against racism in community forum. Guys, this is probably a placeholder. You have any update?
No, yeah, short update here. I was fortunate enough to be put in contact with somebody from the Alaska Humanities Forum, and we are working on this. And yeah, we're no plans yet, but I think we have a path forward. Okay.
Great, thank you. Number 11, if that works. Discuss and vote on action generated from GBOS Land Use Committee Town Hall, June 14th, 2022. Request opinion from legal department on whether the correct process was followed for HLB's Girdwood Residential 2021 RFP, selection of the proposal and subsequent development agreement for Holton Hills with different scope/partners from the selected proposal. This is in the packet.
I can speak to that briefly. So the advice with Randy's help, the advice we got was there's a process called request for legal services, and that can be used for kind of getting clarification, which is what we're looking for in here. It probably cannot be used if we want to take a position against another municipal entity. There probably is a mechanism for doing that, but that's going to require a little bit more work and research. The Assembly, for example, are in litigation with the Mayor's office. So there is a way of doing that between different branches, but how you do it within effectively a branch is not clear. However, the clarification, the particular question we have in front of us here of getting basically clarification from legal on whether the process is whether the right processes were followed, whether they actually follow code, is, I believe, something we can request. So I'm going to just simply move that we do so. So I'm going to move that we request an opinion from the legal department, etc.
Thank you, Mike. We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion with the board?
I'll just say a little bit more about it. So the questions come up several times in the various town halls we've had so far, and probably will come up tomorrow in the next town hall and other discussions about whether the RFP process was followed correctly, whether the fact that the RFP was, or the selected RFP involved multiple partners, 3 partners, and the development agreement only has a single partner, has a single developer in there, whether this is actually, whether this was legal, whether this was in code or not. And we should be able to get clarification on that point from the Department of Law, from the Municipal Attorney's Office. If we want to do something with that in the future, then we may have to do something externally. That's unclear, but at least this question of process, we believe we can get internally. So the motion basically is to get staff to generate that request on our behalf. But we need a motion in order to do that.
Thank you for that information, Mike. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have in our budget for the legal to support us, but would this be above and beyond that as far as supporting that monetary, paying for it?
This would be kind of either no charge or done through IGCs. So it wouldn't necessarily appear as a budget item.
Okay, yeah, I figured it'd be covered through IGCs, but thanks.
Any other questions? If there's no further discussion, I asked for a roll call vote. Margaret?
Sure. Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that work with Randy and Mike. Moving to number 12, agenda item LUC 2205-07, Girdwood Chamber of Commerce request for a GBOS resolution of support regarding Holton Hills Development Agreement and land disposal. Like to speak to this too?
Yeah, sure. So we have a resolution in the packet on page 11. You could read it, or we can just. I don't want to read all of it out. I don't have to, but I'm happy to if you wish.
I would rule to save time not to read the whole resolution into the record.
I can summarize it very briefly. So the summary is there's a section at the beginning that just talks about history of how we got here. There's a section in the middle that basically complains about for want of a better term, complains about the lack of process to incorporate Girdwood community concerns and priorities into the RFP or into the development agreement. There's a little bit of background on how different our housing situation is from the other parts of the municipality. And then there's a summary of what it looks like what the community feedback is so far and the primary concerns about that. And then the final, therefore, is that we request HLB to engage with GBOS and the advisory committee to address our needs for workforce and mid-income housing, part of this development, perform the required MOA impact studies and codify changes through amendment to the development agreement or through similar binding mechanisms. I would say one of the key words there is binding mechanisms.
Thank you. This has been partially read in as our motion. Do we have a second to discuss?
This is Amanda. I'll second.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll open it up for discussion on the resolution.
So I've got a couple of comments.
Okay.
So this has a particular ask. It both asks for productive engagement with the advisory committee and GBOS, but then it also talks about something very specific. Now, the advisory committee has not got to the point of asking for anything specific, but this resolution as written does, which is kind of, in one way, it's putting the cart before the horse, but I don't think it's likely. At the same time, I don't think it's likely this isn't going to be one of the things that's asked for from the advisory committee. So I can see an argument for not including that ask, and I can see an argument for including the ask, but it's there now. So I think that's kind of a discussion that I think we should have about whether this is preempted and too early.
Jennifer, go ahead. Your hand is up.
I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to whoever managed all these whereases. It's pretty thorough and I think pretty impressive. It gives a good history as well as a perspective, Girdwood's perspective. I have some questions about this ask. I would say two things. First of all, on the question of whether or not it's okay to ask anything, we specifically said during the working session for setting up the Holton Hills Advisory Committee that it wouldn't supersede the will of Girdwood as expressed through land use. And that was specifically discussed during the setup. So I don't see any problem with us discussing that or including an ask, particularly since this ask has already passed so resoundingly. Well, sorry, an ask has passed so resoundingly with land use. Also, in addressing this ask, I would like to draw attention and I would like to have a discussion about the extent to which it differs from what passed through land use. And I find that it lacks the teeth that the community asked for. So I just would like to hear people's thoughts on that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments from anyone online? See a new hand, Margaret.
There it is.
Okay. Mr. Volland?
Yeah, can you just scroll down so I can read the resolves? Whoever's doing the screen share.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for asking. I liked the thorough approach to this resolution with the history and more specific percentages and examples, and feel that our ask is very appropriate right now. So I'm comfortable with this resolution as it's written.
Brown.
Okay. We have a question in the room. Move over one chair. I'm sure we'll hear you.
Yeah, hey, this is Lene. And thank you, Mike, for working on this. I looked at what the chamber proposed and what Mike rewrote, and they are very similar. One little thing that if I'm reading this correctly, is the whereas on April 6th is repeated on a whereas one following, and it looks like they're exactly the same, unless I'm missing something for typo purposes. And then the thing that the chamber board put on their resolution proposal, and that was passed at the land use, was removed. And it just states now a resolution of support of amendment of the development agreement. And I think that there was a very strong opinion that it should be amended, and if that isn't the solution, then it should be voided. And so I would like to see the original resolution written, put back into this document, which would read a resolution of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors requesting the municipality of Anchorage Heritage Land Bank amend or cancel the development agreement of Holton Hills in order to advance policies of 1, increasing the supply of workforce housing in Girdwood, 2, address the results of the required MOA impact studies, 3, limit the use of Holton Hills property for short-term rentals by using tools such as deed restrictions, which that whole statement is what Mike also lined out in the whereases. So I don't find it to be a contrary statement to what is put in there. And the other thing that was removed that I think should be put back in is the comment of deed restrictions, which would go under, whereas the development agreement for Holton Hills has no mechanism to encourage use of the resultant housing as primary residences or to discourage their use as vacant second homes or commercial short-term rental businesses. And so it's kind of stated there, but that little addition to the end of the sentence, such as deed restrictions, I think would be a helpful statement to say what it is that I think the community would be looking for as a way to regulate the commercial short-term rental business possibility of happening in Holton Hills. And then lastly, at the very end of the document, the therefore be it resolved, line item number 1 is great, but I would like the line item number 2 brought back in. If the development agreement plan cannot obtain a resolution of support by GBOS, then a new RFP should be released in consultation with GBOS on or before spring of 2023. The RFP should use conditions and covenants intended to increase the supply of workforce housing at Girdwood and use tools such as deed restriction as a mechanism to reach these needs. Again, it's all pointed out in the letter and it's just reiterated at the end for the be it resolved portion.
Thank you.
Can I make an amendment? So I've got 2 general comments. The thing about the removing, first of all, this is the only thing. If there's no discussions are productive, then we'll issue a resolution based on that. I would expect, or at least we'll probably bring one up based on the outcome of any discussions of the activity of the Homelessness Advisory Commission, committee. So I feel that the sort of removal and cancel it all is definitely preemptive. But that doesn't mean we're not going to say that in the future. I just don't think that's the right thing to say now. The point about I think you said it. One of the there's so many whereases, I don't know which one it is. The one about no mechanism to encourage use of resultant housing. I like the way you phrased that, so I think that's a good potential amendment of. So this is about
7,
1, 2, 3, 4,
from the bottom.
5. Yeah, it's the 6th one down on the 2nd page. If after the word mechanism we put, such as deed restriction to encourage the use of result housing, etc. So that I think that addresses the issue about if you want to mention a deed restriction in there.
Okay. Mike, would you like to move that as an amendment?
I will move an amendment to the resolution of adding after the word mechanism on the 6th whereas on page 2 to put comma such as deed restrictions, comma to encourage use, etc.
Okay, there's been an amendment to the resolution. Is there a second? Entertain a second for the amendment.
I'll second that. This guy.
Thanks, Guy. Okay, we have a second for that amendment. I thought we had to vote on any superseding amendments before the resolution. Is that
Yeah,
true?
we can vote on this amendment.
Okay. If there is any further discussion, we can discuss or quickly vote on the amendment right now. I don't see any hands from the board. So Margaret, can you do a roll call for the amendment?
Yes. Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this resolution? I see Brooks' hand is up. Brooks, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I believe this is substantively different from what passed the LUC. And the main difference I see is that the what came out of the LUC was a pretty clear statement that if this agreement isn't changed, the entire agreement should be terminated or the process start over again with an additional RFP. In other words, you're staking out a more aggressive position. That's what came out of the LUC. This resolution seems to be saying, you know, we want you to do something, but not really then taking the next step and saying specifically that if the community's concerns aren't adequately addressed, then we want the assembly to not approve the transaction or the agreement be canceled, things like that. And, you know, my own preference would be that the community take a more aggressive stance from which you could always back off later than take this, what it, to me is a more incremental approach where you're sort of, you know, reserving the right to object later. And it's not a big difference, but I think it's a substantive difference, and it's kind of, and I was hoping to hear an explanation of why that seemed like a good idea to the board, and I haven't really heard it yet tonight. Because maybe, you know, if there, maybe it is a good idea. I don't know. I just haven't heard anyone really articulate it, and it's not what I would do. I'm not going to say much more. I mean, at the very beginning, when I kind of engaged on this, which was a little bit after the fact, you know, it was right around, I think, the first of the year after the presentation that happened in December, when I kind of realized how far astray from the actual process that HLB is supposed to follow, both by its own policy, through Anchorage code provisions, and through you know, the precedent in our own community, which is, in my experience, what happened with the golf course disposal. And there's too much to talk about in this at this point in the evening, but this thing was really screwed up from the very beginning. And if you compare it with how HLB went about the golf course disposal, you'd see a massive difference in the engagement with the community in advance of putting out an RFP. And then you would see very shortly after a proposed document was agreed to and negotiated, that went in front of the assembly for approval. And, you know, we heard earlier tonight that, you know, we're off and running, starting to divvy up the property and platting it and things like that. And that nobody seems to have any concept of when the development agreement is going to be presented to the assembly for approval. And that's very specifically required in Anchorage code. So I'm not going to get into all of that, any more of that right now, but this thing is really bad the way it was done. It wasn't done the correct way. And so I think the community response should be more, you know, aggressive in this resolution.
Thank you, Brooks, for your comments. I see Jennifer's hand is up.
Thank you, Brianna. Just building on what Lene and Brooks have said, I what occurs to me in this final resolution sentence, the therefore be it resolved, is that it is really focused on the lack of workforce and middle income housing, which granted is one of the main complaints about the resulting development agreement. But that complaint is a symptom of the process, not the cause. So one of the key differences between what passed at land use and what is now being presented is not just about aggression, but or at all about what is and isn't aggressive, but about addressing the cause of this issue. And the cause of this issue, as Brooks was saying, is the process. So unless we really address that process, which I feel like Lene's draft did a better job of, we're not addressing the bigger issue. We're trying to retroactively turn this into something that fits us, but we shouldn't be in that position. So the problem with this whole thing has been the utter lack of public process to now be in a position where we request that HLB engage with us is a soft ask for a major problem. It's hard not to look at this as waving a white flag. So I would like, just for the sake of making sure that we give everything a fair shot and truly try to adopt what the community voted for, I would like to make a motion that we adopt Lene's wording and then work on that rather than try to start from this fairly toothless and non-substantive resolution just at the end.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are you suggesting an amendment to that, to the words request and the last therefore, and then pick another word in there too?
No, I am suggesting that we adopt Lene's changes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. For process here, Lene, really quick, was your second suggestion in the last therefore be it resolved?
Mine was to take back from my original one and plug in the number 2 in addition to the beginning intro to put the original intro back in place.
Okay. Jennifer, were you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we need a second to discuss the motion.
Could we find out? I'm unclear what Jennifer's actually asking for.
Okay, can you say one more time, Jennifer, your motion, please?
Yeah, just for the sake of discussion, my motion is that we adopt the changes that Lene outlined, and I don't have them all written out in front of me, but she spoke them pretty clearly.
Do you mean replace the document with Lene's version? Or do you mean specific changes to this document?
I mean the specific changes that Lene read out. And I'm sure that she can clarify that for you if you'd like.
So is that replacement of all of the
Intro here, Fred.
So I think an intro.
The deed one you said.
Well, D1's already in.
Yeah, and be resolved number 2 that were both in the original submitted.
If we could actually see what that is. I mean, it needs to be on the screen or something where we can all see it.
Want to do a quick scan?
Yeah, we could see it, but people online couldn't see it.
I think you just have to read it out.
I can read it again.
Yeah, so if you could read it slowly with adding at the beginning, now therefore be it resolved.
Yep.
Please.
So with the resolution edits that Mike Edgington proposed, I would like to reintroduce the original text that was approved through land use into Mike's edited version. So I would like to cross out Mike's resolution of support of amendment of the development agreement between Heritage Land Bank and CY Investments to address Girdwood community housing needs and replace it with the original resolution that the chamber crafted, which is, I will read, a resolution of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors requesting the municipality of Anchorage Heritage Land Bank amend or cancel the development agreement, Holton Hills, in order to advance policies of 1, increasing the supply of workforce housing in Girdwood, 2, address the results of the required MOA impact studies, 3, limit the use of Holton Hills property for short-term rentals by using tools such as deed restriction. And in the last portion of this document where it says, now therefore be it resolved, to add back in number 2, which states, if the development agreement plan cannot obtain a resolution of support by GBOS, then a new RFP should be released in consultation with GBOS on or before spring 2023. The RFP should use conditions and covenants intended to increase the supply of workforce housing in Girdwood and use tools such as deed restriction as a mechanism to reach these needs. That's it.
Okay. Please, so what you just read was the very beginning title with numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then after now therefore be it resolved. Okay. Do we have a second? A second to have any discussion?
I have a question. This is Guy.
Sure.
So are we, we're putting this wording in here, and I like it, and I agree with it, but it does give it a little more teeth, for sure. Are we going to vote on this and approve it before we see the final document written out?
I think it's been done in different resolutions of support in the past that I've attended where it has not been printed up.
And it was in land use document.
It was in the original document you guys had last.
Thank you, Guy, for your question. I think that we have to edit it on the spot unless we do it next month. That's what I understand. Margaret, can you answer that? Clearly.
I think that there have been times when we have seen the Board of Supervisors say that they have approved something in concept that they have not necessarily seen all written out. I think it's also possible for us to send a draft that has the changes that have been recommended to all of the supervisors, and as long as they only reply back to me with whether or not they agree that that reflects everything that we've talked about, then I think we could have the co-chairs sign it. I don't think that this is something that requires that you come back a month from now. I think that one way or another, there should be a solution that can happen more quickly than that.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good approach. It would be nice to be able to read it before it was signed, but I wouldn't want to delay it a month because this is, important. But if there is a mechanism to redraft this for final approval between now and next month, that'd be great.
Thank you, Guy. I agree in the interest of time that just editing a few sentences takes a lot of time out of a already late evening. So I see more hands, but they're not forward. Michael, do you have a comment?
I'd like to move that we split the Jennifer's amendment to 2, because they're 2 different things, and have one amendment being the change to the title, which is it's kind of strange because the title almost says what the title kind of makes slightly different claims from the therefore resolved, which is a weird way of doing it. And I don't know how that's interpreted. But I think the title we can deal with separately from the second resolution.
Do we have a second to the motion?
Sorry, I'm confused. Is this a second for my motion or for Mike's motion?
Sorry, Margaret has clarification.
Right, I think that we never had a second to Jennifer's motion.
Right.
So I'm not sure where we are with that.
Right, we cannot have
started on this.
on the floor. So I never had there was never a second, Jennifer, for your motion that Lene read the edits for. So we need a second, because the next question was from Guy about what was next. So if you withdraw your motion, Jennifer, and we put it into two motions, because the title is a different edit per se than the final now therefore be it resolved.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to address these as two separate items. And so taking the first one first.
Who was the second on that?
Well, I thought you moved it.
I moved a split of Jennifer's, but that was before I realized there wasn't a second on the original amendment.
Right.
Okay.
We need to do the motion, the new motion, to split. Jennifer, were you
Yeah.
also?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, are you asking that I move that we discuss or adopt, actually, it's two different motions, isn't it?
Yes.
One that we change all right, so let me start with that. Should I start with that I move that we change that, yes, sorry. I move that we change the title to Lene's recommendation.
Okay, do we have a second? We don't have a second, the motion dies, and we could discuss the other amendment.
Okay, so I think I need to make another motion. Is that correct?
Sounds like it.
Okay, so I move that we adopt the original wording that land use passed for the final now therefore be it resolved.
Do we have a second? Okay, I do not hear a second. Or see a hand. So I have a suggestion for how to go next. The idea for doing it, Margaret, your suggestion?
Well, we go through, if nothing, the amendments haven't been seconded, then we vote on the main motion.
Then we vote on the main motion. Right. Okay. Thank you for your patience. So we need to go back to the main motion, which was seconded to, that's right here, the whole text in front of us, resolution 2022-14. There's no further discussion. I'd ask for a roll call.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just point out that can we check that Brooke's hand is a legacy hand?
Yeah, the screen keeps moving around. I do see it. Brooks, would you like to point anything out? Don't see a hand.
No, I was done.
Thank you. Okay, back to the roll call, Margaret.
Right, and so this is still amended from its original language in the packet with the change to the last whereas on the second page to add deed restrictions in there. And so going to a roll call vote, Brianna Sullivan.
Yes.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Guy Wade.
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard.
I'm sorry, Margaret. Can you clarify what we're voting again?
You're voting on the existing resolution in the packet with a change to add on the second page, the 1, 2, 3, 4. It is the 6th whereas, so that it includes the comment about deed restrictions.
Right, so we are voting to adopt as is with that one change.
Correct.
Okay, no.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you, everyone. The agenda item.
Do we have a hand up from Ron Tenney?
We do. Ron, is this on number 11? 12, I mean?
Am I allowed to talk? I was just gonna quickly comment that I believe the last caller who mentioned being passive is probably not the right approach. I sit on the HLB commission, and earlier, prior to all this even being discussed, the sale and the transfer of this land was on the agenda at the HLB with no public input. Girdwood Inc. sent out a newsletter, luckily, and basically got word out to the community. As a commissioner, I only knew about it a month before. I think taking a passive approach that you're taking is absolutely the wrong direction to go. The Board of Supervisors, you're going to be run over in this whole process. It's not been an open process. I think a letter should be written on why they're not following code on a master plan. And I think the approach we need to take as a community is just what the land use said. So sitting on the actual HLB board, I have little or no information week to week on what's going on in this thing. I learn through the community. The commissioners that are on the commission learn through what they hear through public comment. And the message you're sending here, I think, is a pretty weak one. And I think Jennifer was pretty correct in her viewpoints. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Kaylee, is this on number 12?
It wasn't, but it's fine. We can move on. I just had a question for Ron, but I can ask him privately. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Number 13, consider options for expediting the development of the Girdwood Trails plan. Would Kyle like to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much related to this. I know Amanda did a bunch of background work, as you see here in the packet. And I think the request that you received from community members was to approve the Girdwood Trails plan as currently written and amended, and to basically go over the process of Trails Committee and Land Use approving it, and then moving it forward for process up through the ranks. So that's what the request was, and I think that's what led to this agenda item, and that's where it currently stands. At this point in time, Trails Committee has been on summer break, but they do return August 1st, 2nd, and we'll start to discuss the Trails plan at that time. They are still going through Girdwood Trails Committee members' amendments that were submitted and have been in process for quite a few months now.
Thanks, Kyle. And thank you, Amanda, for putting together this information. And then when earlier I was looking at just seeing one of the things missing on the quick timeline is the February 1st meeting of this year that the Girdwood Trails Committee voted down the red line version. So I have that in my notes. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. I was able to reach out to the planning department, Daniel McKenna Foster, who is kind of oversees Girdwood. And he was wondering who Nick Georgelis had talked to, and Nick came back with he had mostly spoken with Shelley and Kyle. So then Daniel emailed me, and I just wanted to read his statement. So after looking into this a bit more, my understanding that there will have to be some sort of higher level review for any sort of trail building on public land. In most cases, it is probably UDC, but in other cases, it might be a master site plan done through the planning department or planning and zoning commission. Without much more additional information, I am not sure I can be of much use at the meeting tonight. I'd have a better understanding of what has happened so far so that I can how that fits into the existing rules. And he would like to meet possibly with trail plan makers to figure out a bit more about this issue. And I forwarded that to Kyle and Margaret to maybe connect as they're, or at least Kyle's working on that with Huddle. And maybe it should have gone to the Trails Committee folks too, I'm not sure. And this was all like 4:52 is when he emailed me that. So today, sorry I didn't make it into the packet. That's really the background information, the last of it that I've gathered. Besides, yeah, the addition to the timeline, as you mentioned, Brianna.
Thanks, Amanda. Any other comments from the board? This item?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's the same thing about the missing comment about the red line being voted down in, I thought it was January, but February meeting. I think that we should probably get that added back to the timeline. This is taking a very long while, obviously, and I wish we weren't in the position we were for the Trails plan. I think we had what would be a normal public process, and then this sort of extra stuff got added. Well, it got added in the middle and then ended up at the end of the process. I also don't feel comfortable about stepping in and dictating that the Trails Committee came to a conclusion about how they were going to handle this. About going back, they did not accept the red line plan, so clearly the Trails Committee is not happy with that document, or enough people at that meeting were not happy with that document. So we have to respect that decision. So I feel that stepping in, which is kind of the original request, and mandating that that red line plan becomes the proposed plan is not really respectful of the public process. But at the same time, making a set of changes to that and not having it go back through the public comment period is also not respectful to the public process. So I'm kind of stuck between these two things of we either cut it prematurely or we have to sort of go through a full review. And neither of those are particularly attractive alternatives.
I agree. And it seems like the new information is coming from new staff at planning department that are giving different directions of whether or not UDC is necessary after having a trails plan. They're citing a master plan or another planning and zoning through the planning department for trail building. Jennifer, your hand is up.
Thank you. Well, I agreeing with both you and Mike. I have a question about this, and maybe it's not a possibility at all, but I wonder, while I agree with Mike about the problems of dictating anything, and I'm also uncomfortable with dictating acceptance of red line, but another matter of discomfort is the fact that it's a significant amount of public money has gone into this. And we have a responsibility about that too, that this plan, given the money that's gone into it, doesn't belong to Trails Committee. It belongs to Girdwood and the whole public. So in that sense, I am a little comfortable with us taking a stand in one way or the other. And one suggestion I heard floated this week was putting a deadline on getting another plan out and then putting them both before the community what if the community got to vote on both red line and I don't know what we're calling the next one that might or might not be in the pipes of blue line, but whatever is done by, say, I don't know, the end of October, then the community gets to vote on those two things. And we, at that point, stipulate no more changes.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think I probably suggested a deadline last meeting for the Trails Committee to just give some incentive to decide instead of pushing off and extending meetings and adding meetings, which hasn't necessarily helped anything. So we're not in this easy position at all for number 13 here, but we just need to come up with a statement to send back to the Girdwood Trails Committee, since their first meeting is in a couple of weeks next month. And I think all of us, the consensus is we don't feel comfortable with taking over and passing a plan that was already voted down in their public process and in meetings. So if anyone has a general motion, you could, and I would entertain that right now.
Before a motion, I'd have just two things. First of all, I agree with Jennifer, what she said earlier. We have a responsibility. While I feel uncomfortable about stepping on the toes of the Trails Committee, at the same time, we do have a responsibility to the money that's being spent on this process and the staff time that's being spent on this process as well. There's an opportunity cost here. Staff is not spending time on other things that need to be done because this process has taken so long. So we do have a role to sort of make these executive decisions if we need to. The information which came from Nick about even if we have a trails plan, it still needs to go through the UDC. That's kind of confused me a lot, and I don't think I completely understood what Amanda's interpretation of that. So I'd like to just ask Amanda if she can just repeat that and see if I can get it the second time.
Thank you, Mike. I also think Daniel McKenna Foster's response was that he needed to talk to more people.
Right, so we haven't got clarity on that.
No, we have not gotten clarity, which is unfortunate in this time frame. So Amanda, if you could answer Mike's question, reread it.
Yep. Oh, okay, you want me to reread Daniel's email or?
Well, could you summarize it? Because I don't think I didn't really understand it.
Summarize his response?
Yeah, do we believe that even if the Trails plan is adopted, trails still have to go through the UDC?
I believe that even if it sounds like to me from this email, even if the Trails plan is adopted, it'll still have to go through the UDC unless there's a master site plan. But that is done through the planning department or planning and zoning commission, which is not what we are, which is why our trails master plan is insufficient to circumvent the UDC process, is what I understand.
Okay, so the suggestion we have so just to take a step back, what it appears to be then is the whole motivation for doing the trails plan was incorrect. That's where what information we appear to be given now.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's not a cheery thought.
No. And what is possible that I've area plan that have been the actual thing that could have been the master plan, especially now that we are working more closely with the planning department, so that I don't remember, $70,000 could have maybe gone toward our area plan work. And maybe we would be closer to being done and actually get the result that we were looking for. But we're past that. So moving on.
Okay, we'll go with Guy and then Kyle.
Yeah, thanks, Brianna. So I don't know what our action here is to make a, do we need to make a, I feel uncomfortable stepping on the Trails Committee, or stepping in front of them, you know, and making some kind of mandate to them because, you know, that's why they're there. But, the possibility of requiring an end date to this, you know, the Trails Committee does such good work, but the last year it's just been about this, and I think it's getting in the way of, like Mike said, the staff, but also the Trails Committee doing what they love to do. And so I think, I don't know if we can make a, you know, I don't feel comfortable you know, accepting something or rejecting something when they haven't met, whenever we met last time, and they took the time off in the summer. So, but if we could mandate or suggest strongly a end date to this, that would be beneficial, I think, for everybody.
Thank you, Guy. Kyle, go ahead.
I think you should let Shannon go. She's had her hand up the longest, and I'll go after her.
Okay, I do see that. Shannon, your turn.
Hi, thank you. So I have a question, I guess, but then I'll follow with a comment. So you don't have to answer the question right away, but I feel there's a little inequality with LUC and trails because LUC is a community vote and it's supposed to be also equal or parallel to trails. And the Board of Supervisors finds it appropriate to question community input on LUC, but at the same time, I'm hearing for trails that it's inappropriate. So I just want to keep that in mind and acknowledge that it is appropriate at times for GBOS being the governing body to step in if needed. So that's my question, kind of comment, but also I think a timeline would be good. However, I think that we're just about to get into some of the more contentious conversation that is dividing the trail plan. And so to shorten that conversation at this point, if you're going to allow this to keep going, to shorten that conversation at this point is a disservice because that's kind of why we're here where we are, because we keep revoting the same vote. So just some things to consider.
Thank you, Shannon. Kyle and then Kaylee.
Yeah, I'll have to talk with Daniel because, you know, the understanding that we had coming from the planning department is that a Girdwood needed a trails plan in order to help develop trails. And all part of that was in order to avoid the UDC process. If a trails plan was developed within code, the director had the ability to approve a trail network if it was recognized within a community plan. And so that was the whole impetus of this project, was to create that. And then the comment related to funding, that the funding could have gone to the area plan. We're not allowed within code to give money to planning projects that aren't associated with one of our services. And so in this case, it fell under Parks and Rec with the trails. And so we were allowed to use the funding to develop this plan. Whereas with the area plan, we were restricted because we don't really have a classification or a department that we collect taxes for that would relate to, as it's a broad plan. That's where the planning department needs to fund those type of things through the assembly action. So that's just clarification. I will follow up with Daniel, try to learn more about this, because it was very clearly laid out to us that we needed to do that process between the former planning director and Dave Whitfield, who's still there. So we'll follow up with Daniel. Maybe Daniel needs more information about how we've gotten here.
I think so too, Kyle. Thank you. Kaylee.
Can I just interrupt, Kaylee? This will not be the first time in my life. Can I make a motion to extend? I'm afraid I'm going to have to say 11 o'clock till 11.
We have a motion to extend till 11 o'clock tonight. Do we have a second?
I'll take a friendly amendment for 10:30 as well.
Friendly amendment to 10:30.
I'll second 10:30.
Thank you, guys.
We'll do to 10:30, I accept that.
10:30. Okay. With that in mind, and do we need any assent vote?
I think it's probably a good idea.
Any objections to 10:30?
I just
Okay.
request.
Go ahead.
10:30 and that we. Oh, sorry. I requested it's a hard 10:30 and that we reschedule anything past it.
Thank you, Amanda. Kaylee?
Yeah, well, first I'll agree as a public commenter about the 10:30. However, my original comment was really to both point out that I'd like some clarification, if Kyle can clarification on this issue with the Trails Committee, because obviously this has been something that's been quite contentious, and truly you could say that we have been through this process to the point at which, a pause would be reasonable, particularly if we no longer have the impetus to get the master plan in order to allow, Bike Group and others to miss out on the UDC process. So I think once we met, had the subcommittee meet, came up with the recommendations, the community made comments, we put comments together, GTC voted down that plan. That was sort of a natural endpoint if we weren't moving forward, if the impetus is removed. If the impetus is still there, there's clear reason for us to go forward. But yeah, I'm really curious about that. And thank you, Amanda, for checking on it. And thank you, Kyle, for getting clarification. Look forward to hearing from you. Can we please include me in any conversation once you do?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Just to answer that question, the last time I had talked to planning, they said that in order for the mountain bike group to build any new trails, that this plan was highly needed, and that even if the director couldn't approve it, they still would need the plan to help support it through UDC. So the plan is needed no matter what. They're just hoping to alleviate having to pay $4,000 every time they submitted for a trail.
Right, and that was kind of my understanding of it as well. But if that in any way has changed, then yes, I would like to know that, because I feel like we're either sort of at an end of a process, or we're heading down, sort of redoubling that work in a sense. But anyway, thank you. Thanks, Amanda.
Amanda?
Thank you. Kyle, when did you last talk with planning about this, what you were just saying?
Well, I'm trying to think that through. I think sometime in early winter. It might have been actually just before Christmas, because we presented the plan to them, and they were very pleased with the plan. They thought it was actually a well done plan, and they were impressed with it. And so at that time, it was Michelle McNulty, who was the planning director. It's before she left, and Dave Whitfield, who is the one of the planning managers.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, you've had your hand up for a while. If you could come to the mic a little closer.
Yes. So I understand the board's reticence to dictate the process for Trails Committee. It would be a very unusual step. I would point out that this is a very unusual situation. Not simply the fact that it's dragged on for 2.5 years, but also the fact that you have Trails Committee members coming before you requesting this and writing letters requesting it and speaking in favor of overriding our own committee. It's a very unusual situation. I would urge you to consider unusual measures. If you don't wish to approve the red line plan, there's other alternatives. One, like you said, a timeline, a hard timeline, with some caveats. One problem with that is it's simple to overturn community feedback. There's a bit of a flash mob phenomenon taking place at times on Trails Committee. We voted to keep one area of designated primitive trails. I'm giving you one example. designated primitive trails and voted not to put in a proposed Class 3 bike trail connecting to the cul-de-sacs off Timberline. We voted that in December, 36 to 20 plus abstentions, a very clear majority. And now their new, we voted for that. That was voted into the plan. Now their proposals to undo all of that there's a proposal to remove all primitive trail areas, including that one, including the other two that were approved. There's a proposal to put in that trail again. It's virtually the same proposal, but one can get enough people to trail committee. It lost 36 to 20. It could, that proposal could lose, or yeah, proposal for putting in a trail there could win, 50 to 30 at the next one. It's easy to generate a flash mob, and it becomes a bit of a contest who can send out the most inflammatory emails to incite the most people to come in and speak angrily and vote on one issue. So if you set a hard deadline, such as October, please take that into consideration. Are we going to have, votes to undo votes we've already cast? I definitely think GBOS needs to step in with action. It could be a hard deadline. It could be approving the red line. It could be taking a look at what are the sticking points. There's one sticking point.
5 seconds.
Areas for primitive trails have been kept in, and new proposals are always generated to put them out, and that is all we've thought about. Everything else has been smooth sailing. GBOS could pay attention to that one issue. Thank you. 10 seconds over, I apologize.
We have, I forget who is next, Jennifer, and then Deborah.
I just had a question for Jonathan, if it's okay, through the chair. I just am unclear, Jonathan, if you had a specific recommendation. I mean, I understand you gave us options, which is great, but with your perspective there, do you have a specific recommendation?
Really, I came in tonight with the recommendation of approve the red line plan. The only reason I'm throwing out other options is because I'm hearing so much reluctance to do that. At the very least tonight, I would say, please, continue to consider doing that. It just represents good consensus, good compromise. Didn't have everything in it that I wanted or that anyone wanted, but it had a lot of something for everyone. It represented all user groups, and some of the newer proposals specifically exclude specific user groups. So that's the first thing, the red line plan. I really think it's a good option. Other than that, I would say if you ask me a specific proposal, I would say be willing to step in on one or two specific issues to say, okay, we're, whatever the committee approves with exceptions, A, B, and C. There might be a place for the GBOS to make the decision regarding certain areas, such as the sticking point, the 3 areas with primitive trails. Because we fought for 2 years and we'll fight for 2 more. There's a lot of users who want to continue using those areas as they are. And then there's a contingent that wants to eliminate that.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. We have another hand up. Deborah, you have 3 minutes. You're still on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, Brianna. Thanks for taking me. It's Deborah Krogan. So, feeling a little bit pressured. Don't want to give a history lesson either, and don't want to, not only because of the 3 minutes, but just to be respectful of the time tonight. I guess really what there's so many comments that have been made that I really want to react to. one of them specifically is that, yes, I do agree with you, Brianna. It should be written in there that the Trails Committee voted that red line down in the January, December. I think it's really relevant at the same time, if you're going to put those in there, not you specifically, that the numbers are the numbers of how many people attended that meeting. Because the actual Girdwood Trails Committee, I couldn't agree with you that the Girdwood Trails Committee voted that down. I'd have to say that's not true. Yes, the numbers were there. So with that being, trying to bring that in full circle back and also tagging on with Jonathan, because that's what I was trying to get in before he rolls his hand. But I do get that the timeline and a deadline should be put in place. However, this is where I don't know how to, I just really want to get to my point and not summarize it, but it would be duly super wrong to put a deadline on October. Just for the fact that, like, yeah, the summer we didn't have numbers. And I don't know, flash mob, whatever you want to call it, stacking it, whatever. That's absurd to think that we're going to have that done. And it's unfair to the community because, yes, the burden has been on the Girdwood Trails Committee, the staff, and the Girdwood Trails Committee members. Well, so Girdwood Trails Committee, like the people that love to do, Mike, what you said, what they like to do, and the staff. Well, it's also the Girdwood Trail members. Okay, thanks. I hope I made myself clear on that. So I'm in favor of a deadline, but just not, be real careful on when you put that deadline in, please.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other comments from the board? I see Guy, is that an old hand or a new hand?
It is an old hand, but when is the Trails Committee next meeting? 2 weeks from now?
August 2nd, Margaret?
Correct.
August 2nd.
August. Okay, thank you.
And Jennifer?
So thank you, Brianna. I don't have a dog in this fight. I actually have not been as emotionally involved as so many of the people who have at this point given countless hours to this plan. So at the risk of producing yet another motion that doesn't get seconded, I just thought I'd throw out there, what about saying this January, if I'm correct, it'll be a full year since the red line plan got voted down by Trails. What if we set the deadline of January 30th of next year? And then I would also like to, well, it's a double motion. That's one option. And I would also like to add as an addendum or as part of the discussion, allowing a community vote on both plans, red line and whatever else.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mike. Any other discussion on the motion? Kaylee, go ahead, Guy.
I have a question. Are you talking community vote, not just a Girdwood Trails Committee meeting vote, right? Is that what we're talking about? Not
correct.
Okay.
I'm talking about a community vote. I think that I think that this is getting to be a very painful process for Trails, and I don't know that there's going to be a not painful way out of it, but maybe the least painful way is what we can aim for.
And I could kindly suggest it comes through as a recommendation, because that's what Trails asked for, was a recommendation from GBOS.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be super firm as far as an order or something.
That sounds great.
Kaylee, your hand is up.
I just want to revisit really quickly in the midst of this, the idea that the planning department and the requirements of that planning department, where this Trails Committee master plan versus not master plan, supported to help through UDC or not. I think that clarity is something that we need here, because I feel like what we're talking about now doesn't leave the possibility that maybe a pause on the master plan is more feasible than anything else. So obviously move forward with what you're doing, but I'm just want to throw that out there as a third possibility, because I think we did all understand that last year, but in the new administration, I'm not sure if it sounds like we need to get some clarity about the necessity of the master plan at this time. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaylee. I agree with the newer information, that seeking more information from Daniel and et cetera would be important. And we're getting to 20 minutes on this one item. So is there anyone that hasn't spoken yet that would like to speak on the recommendation that has been seconded?
Yes, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
So I think today we were talking about like coming in and making this decision for the Trails Committee. And if we're going to set a 6-month deadline on this, can we, it would be nice if GBOS had some say on not say on the final decision, but just if we had some control on to make that happen, can we, say, okay, we'll accept the red lines or we won't, or whatever the case may be, natural spaces, whatever it may be. If we're going to set a deadline and we're not going to impose, our will on the Trails Committee, which I don't think we should do, we should, if it doesn't happen then I think we should have some leverage to get it done by then. That's 6 months from now. So that's my comment on I don't know if that's an amendment or not, but that's my comment.
Correct. Mike?
I think the way I understood Jennifer's amendment is we're giving the Trails Committee 6 months to come up with a new plan they agree on. And then that and the red line are effectively both presented. So if they do not come up with a new plan in 6 months, then the red line is the only game in town. So it becomes an implicit acceptance of the red line. If another plan doesn't come through, and if the other plan does come through, then it's still 2 options in front of the community. Is that the right way to phrase it, Jennifer? Is that the implications?
I actually think you thought that out better than I did, but yeah, sure, that sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you both. Amanda?
I am concerned that I don't want to, because, okay, the red line plan has already been voted down. If the Girdwood Trails Committee does not come up with the second plan they agree on, that then we send to the community to vote between the red line plan and the new plan, I don't want to just accept the red line plan, which has already been voted down. I would either want to give it to the community to vote on, or as a GBOS board, vote on it between ourselves, especially not saying right now that we'll just accept a red line plan when we don't know what the planning department is going to come back and say, and possibly this trails plan is not something that we actually need. So can we just not do that part about like it just accepting the red line plan, but having it come to a vote in 6 months, regardless?
Jennifer?
I would say yes. Let's put it this way, and I hope this helps clarify that by January 30th, we vote on what we've got. If we've only got red line plan, then the community votes on that. If we've got red line plan and another plan to vote on, and by the way, I am hoping that this option gives Trails a way to what's the term? Kind of tone down some of the arguments, because this way maybe everybody gets a chance with the community. I think a lot of what's been going on at Trails is feeling like voices are trying to represent broader contingencies, and so this gives us a chance to find out what the whole community really thinks. So I'm hoping that this will facilitate the remainder of the conversations on this revised plan and make the options or make the conversations less contentious, because people will then be able to at least lobby for red line plan if they feel like all hope is lost on the other, if that makes sense. So Amanda, I would agree. Let's vote on whatever we got by the end of January, if that's what you were saying.
Amanda?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're stuck on this red line plan. And it would just be nice. I think it would benefit everybody to finalize the actual trails plan. So if GBOS could have some say in that on January 31st, that would be beneficial, I think, to everybody.
Thank you. Any other comments? Margaret, do you feel like you have something substantive? And we could, I feel like I'm okay to edit some of it.
As far as what this motion is?
Or this recommendation have to be a motion?
Well, it would be a
I
motion.
think it's been moved as a motion.
That's true.
I'm not sure that I understand why it needs to have two parts. I think that if you make a deadline January 31st, then you have 6 more months of meetings to address it if you feel like something else needs to happen. And the conversation about what those things might be would be a part of the public record that I'm sure Trails Committee members will observe and be aware of. So, and I think that when you start talking about taking this to a public forum to have a decision on 2 plans, you know, you're already confusing something that's plenty confused on its own. So I feel like you're creating too much of a solution at this point. If I could offer that for your consideration.
Kyle has his hand up too.
Yeah, I'm confused by the motion. It seems like if we get to January 1st, we're going to be voting on two different plans. And, you know, yeah, that it confuses me and worries me that that's going to be very hard to figure out. And then is the community voting on it? Is it like through a Girdwood Trails plan or Trails meeting, or is it a special town hall where people come in and you hope they understand what the plan's about? I'm confused as to what is going to happen if, you know, when they get there, because as of right now, we know the red plan has not passed. They've only passed one amendment that has been submitted by TTC members, which relates to the Virgin Creek trailhead. And so, you know, we have several other amendments to go through. So, and the plan was that we would go through all those amendments, and what is ever accepted would be put into the current plan as amended. And then there'd be a public process to review that and go through that again, and then hopefully go for a vote on that plan. And so, so in this case, it would be that we would still go through that process, but then it sounds like we would get to the meeting and we would vote on the red plan and then the plan as additionally amended.
Guy?
I would just suggest we set that deadline and then GBOS makes that decision if it's not made. So if there isn't a consensus, then we, as a board, make a motion and just pass whatever, not whatever we think, but you know, what just to finalize it. So I think if we could set the date to January 31 and then not extend it further, just to make a final decision on it as GBOS instead of today. So.
Thank you, Guy. I'd really like to finish this item. I I feel like right now, Margaret, that it's switching to just recommending a deadline, and we could evolve it between now and then.
Since Jennifer made the motion originally, can we just check with Jennifer if that's okay? And she's happy to restate her motion in that way, and then if she is, I'll second it.
Did you hear that, Jennifer? Would you like to restate it?
I did, but I guess I'm a little confused. I would like this, my motion originally was meant to be a recommendation because that's what we were asked for, right? That's what GBOS was asked for. We were asked for a resolution, not a declaration. And I guess I like it as is to say January, but Mike, I'm open to your suggestions on this, but I like it as is, January 31st, whatever trails can present to us, we will run with, or sorry, we can have a town hall the way we did before. I don't think that that's particularly confusing. And I think the community is capable of understanding two different plans if that's what Trails manages by then. And if they don't manage it by then we look at the red line plan and we look at the objections Trails has and we present to the community, this is what we have. But that is a full year after red line plan was voted down. And I would agree with Jonathan that this has turned into kind of a process of, I don't know if flash mob is the right word exactly, but it has turned into something that is dragging on with whoever can grab the most people to the party on any given meeting. So I appreciate that we were asked for help, and I want to give actual help, not just kind of wave something vaguely around.
Okay, so I'll try. So basically we're saying on January the 31st, we will have either one plan or potentially two candidate plans. We'll either have a new plan. Oh, sorry. Now I'm getting confusing myself. So the thing about the red line plan is it went through a full public process. And so it went through a full public process. It went through full public comments. Public comments got addressed by staff. Those got incorporated into the plan. So there was a draft plan at that point, but it got voted down by GTC. Since then, we have not generated another draft plan. So at the moment, there is one draft plan which was voted down by GTC on the 1st of February, but there has not been another plan generated since. So what we're saying is by January 31st, there should be a full plan generated by Trails. And if not, then GBOS will take action and move something forward. Is that the right summary?
I like that.
Okay.
Summary.
There's still room for public comment if it's very short. So I want to clarify one thing.
No. Guy said that was okay. Jennifer, you're okay with that? So
yes,
that would be your motion. Basically.
And I'll repeat my second then.
And then Mike just seconded it. So quickly for a comment, Jonathan?
Yes, 20 seconds or less. To clarify about the red line plan, every item in there was voted in by the committee. And then there was a vote not to accept the whole plan as complete. But every single item in there is in there because it was voted in by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The motion is seconded. Margaret, could you do a roll call, please?
Sure. I'm wondering if Kyle's hand is actually up.
Kyle, is your hand up? Well, it is up to us, but.
No, sorry.
Okay,
good. So Jennifer Wingard,
yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy, Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
And,
Can you hear me?
yes, gotcha.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Guy Wade.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have one individual in the room under new business. Would anyone like to move to reorder the agenda?
I was going to ask if there's anything that has to be done tonight.
Okay. Does anything have to be done tonight? Chief Weston?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So,
Both items.
sorry, we're going to request that our speed defer till next month.
Thank you.
It just won't be that much fun tonight.
Sorry, Marco. Could we take up item 15 and 16 next?
I was going to push item 14 until after NUC had done it, so we can put that forward anyway. Delay that a month.
Okay. I just rule that. Any objections?
I'll move that we go straight to 14 and 15. Sorry, 15 and 16.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Guy. Any objections to go 15, 16? Okay. Number 15, Girdwood Fire Department request.
Hello there. This is the second time you've heard about this. We have 9 sets of turnouts that are expiring. Firefighters can't go into buildings with that are expired. Firefighters can't go into buildings with expired turnouts. So we're asking to replace those for $25,000 from the 406 account. We've also separately in January applied for a grant, Fire Act grant for that. We won't know about the Fire Act grant until October. The turnouts will probably arrive in October. It'll be perfect timing because the firefighter ones will be here. Will be done with their class, and they'll then be internal firefighters. Therefore, we'd like the board to approve the $25,000.
I see one little edit. Oh,
sorry.
The second whereas, total, should it say requires not to, sorry, is required not to exceed? So no of right there.
I don't have it in front of me, but sure.
Okay. However it reads to you, Margaret, required.
Sure.
All right.
We'll fix it.
Otherwise, it looked great.
I am looking for the date that the Board of Directors approved the purchase. Can you provide that to me to put in?
I can provide that for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was, I believe, in May.
We can get it.
Yep.
If I'll move it if Guy doesn't want to, or if Guy is able to.
Don't know. Oh, yep. I move we accept the motion to resolution in support of the purchase of the fire turnouts for $25,000.
Second.
Seconds. Do a roll call real quick, Margaret.
Certainly. Brianna Sullivan?
Yes.
Mike Edgington?
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard?
Yes.
Amanda Sassy?
Yes.
Guy Wade?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Number 16, Chief Weston.
Yeah, Margaret, it was May 24th was the board approval. I've got people watching, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Deputy Chief Garner, wherever you are, for texting me on my phone, on my watch. Okay, number 16 is we have 3 command vehicles, as you know. One is 12 years old, 2 are 16 years old. The 12-year-old one is on its last legs and is now needs a new engine, which we won't get back until November. So the 16-year-old is the frontline vehicle that goes to every call with the other 16-year-old vehicle. We also, unlike many fire departments, do all the blocking on the highways with our command vehicles. We had previously, the board, our Girdwood Fire and Rescue Board, on May 24th approved the purchase of 1. At the last board meeting, it was suggested we possibly buy 2. This was before Utility 41 completely died on the highway again for multiple times. And then we've since looked at the costs of them, and we think that we need to go to 200,000, and that would include, and then an additional on there would be an additional 7,000-ish that we have fundraised from the Girdwood Chapel donation, the GoFundMe that I did and online, and then also from the recent fire deployment rental fees on the vehicle. So that would come up to around 7-ish thousand that I could also put towards it. We'd like the two vehicles to be somewhat similar, just because when one goes down, the other then goes in its place, versus having no vehicle. And then additionally, earlier tonight, Nate Ellis said to me, member of the public, well, I don't understand why you're not getting area-wide EMS funds. I agree. So that third vehicle, hopefully we will approach area-wide EMS for that third vehicle. So that way we get all vehicles completely replaced. They're not in good shape.
Okay. I saw a mini edit on that one too, just after the word purchase, maybe. Amanda?
Thank you. Do we know what the GFR 406 capital account, what the balance is there?
I believe, Kyle might be able to say it directly. I don't actually, I can't actually see it. But
It's
Kyle
400. It's 425,000 right now. There's an appropriation of 79,000 that needs to be moved, and also the board appropriated 80,000 last year to pay for payments for Engine 41. Engine 41 has been delayed because of Rescue 41. So that money can all be moved over. So they are probably well over 525,000 in their account.
And so the two things you just mentioned aren't things you're taking out of this account?
yes, they would be.
Or not the two cars, sorry, the engine and whatever else.
And so engine 41, we haven't finished the spec on it. So we're not doing we anticipated by this point in time, we would be doing a loan payment on engine 41, but we're not yet. So that's what Kyle was talking about.
And Rescue 41 is coming out of area-wide. There's a bond.
And I have one more question, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
So the utility 41 and E41, I don't know how to distinguish the two, so I don't know which one I see on the highway, but I'm curious. I have seen a suburban type fire department vehicle coming from Anchorage somewhat regularly, and I was wondering what that was about and if it's one of these two vehicles that is traveling from Anchorage regularly.
We need to extend the meeting before we keep going.
We've kind of technically already finished the meeting because we hit 10:30.
It's 10:30, so we need another motion or not?
Well, technically,
Can I make a quick motion on this or no? Is it?
According to our rules, we've finished the meeting now because we didn't extend it early enough.
Oh, before tonight.
But it's entirely up to the chair.
Oh, I feel like we need to add on to the meeting, even though it's past 10:30. And Guy just moved. I would accept the motion.
Finish this item.
Finish this item.
Second.
Any oppositions? Okay, thank you. Chief Weston, keep going.
You're correct, Amanda. The third vehicle, these two vehicles are not the vehicle you see on the highway. The third vehicle is the Chief 42 mobile. He's taken on the role of doing all the EMS supply and EMS supply transfers. And so rather than have him before, as he was doing, traveling down the highway with drugs and all of our EMS supplies in his personal vehicle, I allowed him to have the 16-year-old utility, formerly known as Utility 43, to transport the drugs in a more professional manner.
So that's not a vehicle coming from a personal residence to Girdwood. It's from Girdwood in to get EMS supplies and then back, correct?
No, it is a take-home car, and the take-home cars are approved by the fire chief in Anchorage. Each year, the fire chief has to approve the take-home cars.
So the person doing the EMS supplies is not just doing the EMS supplies, they are also taking home the vehicle for response purposes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then that vehicle is not the vehicle that is being voted on.
Any other questions? Okay. To finish this item, we need a motion for this resolution.
I would make a motion. This is Guy. I'd make a motion to, in support of the resolution for purchase of the fire department vehicles, to amend that, I guess, at 200,000.
Not to exceed 200,000.
Correct.
That's what we have in front of us.
Okay, good.
A second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jennifer. Could we have a roll call, please, Margaret?
Yes. Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy,
Yes.
Guy Wade.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Since we moved to finish the meeting after this item, the other items will be, hopefully number 17 could be done via writing you, Margaret.
I think we need to finish that and introduce the number 19,
Okay.
or else set up another meeting. But the agenda for the MOA GBOS quarterly meeting was actually posted today because that meets our posting requirements. This is what it looks like at this point.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
I'll second. This is Amanda.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks, Alon.
Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you, Margaret.